What does it mean to live a good life? That question may seem simple, yet it has stirred the hearts of countless philosophers, sages, and ordinary people across millennia. A good life, is it the abundance of material wealth, the admiration of fame, or the serenity of the soul amidst a restless world? In our modern age, surrounded by the clamor of ambition and the speed of technology, we continue our quiet search for the same truth that one man, more than 2,500 years ago, also sought. That man was Confucius, the sage who walked the dusty roads of ancient China, carrying neither gold nor armies, but only his words and a vision, to build a world guided by virtue, not by power. To see what is right and not do it is the want of courage. The Analects. Confucius did not ask, how can one become rich? He asked, how can one live rightly? For him, living well was not the pursuit of personal gain, but the harmony between the individual and the community, between self-cultivation, family order, state governance, and peace under heaven. A life devoted solely to one's own welfare, forgetting others, could neither be called benevolent, Ren, nor wise, Ji. As he once said, the virtuous man is driven by responsibility, the non-virtuous is driven by profit. The Analects 4.16. Thus, the question, what is a good life, becomes the gateway into Confucian philosophy, a philosophy not confined to lofty discourses, but woven into the fabric of daily life. In the way we speak, the way we listen, and the way we treat our parents, friends, and even strangers. For Confucius, the Tao the Way was not distant. It dwelt within the heart of benevolence, Ren, the essence of humanity. Is benevolence far away? No sooner do I desire it than it is here. The Analects 7:29. In the age of the spring and autumn period, China was torn by war, corruption, and moral decay. Trust in politics and social order had crumbled. Yet amid the ruins, one teacher chose not to abandon humankind. He journeyed through more than 14 states, sowing a single seed, ruled by virtue, Renji, to transform through compassion, not to subdue through force. Confucius believed that if a person could correct their own heart, peace would naturally follow in the world. If rulers governed through virtue, D, their people would follow. He declared, if the ruler is upright, all will go well, even though he does not give orders. But if he himself is not upright, even though he gives orders, they will not be obeyed. The Analects 13.6. This is the promise of his timeless journey. To understand Confucius is not merely to learn how to be good, but to find tranquility of the soul amidst chaos. His philosophy does not teach us to escape reality, but to face and transcend it through wisdom, Ji, and compassion, Ren.
For 2.5 millennia, these words have seeped into the lifeblood of over 2.5 billion people, shaping the culture, ethics, and worldview of nearly half of humanity. And today, as the world once again faces division and disorientation, the question, what is a good life, echoes anew a call to return to the very root of our humanity. Let us embark on that journey, a journey into the soul of the East, where philosophy is not merely to be discussed, but to be lived. The superior man thinks of virtue, the small man thinks of comfort. The Analects 4:11. A good life begins not with possessions, but with a heart inclined toward goodness. And that, Confucius reminds us, is what we must rediscover within ourselves. Part 2. Childhood and the Age of Chaos. If the previous section asked what it means to live a good life, then here we return to where that question was born amid fire, poverty, and solitude. For no philosophy is ever born in peace. It is only through ruin that humankind learns what is truly worth keeping. More than 2.5 millennia ago, during the spring and autumn period, an age when moral order trembled, power was fractured, and wars engulfed the land, a child was born in the state of Lu, modern-day Shandong, China. His name was Kong-Q, known to posterity as Confucius. He was not born in a palace nor to noble blood, but to a single mother, Madame Yan, who raised her son with strength and faith amid hardship. His father, Kong Shuliang He, died when Chu was only 3. That was the beginning of a life that would one day reshape the moral foundation of Eastern civilization. Confucius's childhood offered him no privileges, yet it held something far rarer, an unquenchable thirst for learning and a yearning to understand the way, Tao. From an early age, he was fascinated by ritual, music, and the ancient codes of conduct. It is said that at the age of 7, he built miniature altars and performed mock ceremonies as though recreating a world of order amid the chaos around him. Perhaps from that tender age, a seed had been sown in his heart, the desire to restore morality, Di, and ritual propriety, Li, rather than conquer through violence. At 15, I set my heart upon learning. The Analects, 2.4. This line, which Confucius later recalled as a milestone in his life, was not a mere recollection, but a vow, the oath of a man who chose to shape his destiny through knowledge. He grew up not in wealth, but with a piercing awareness that the world around him was sinking into moral collapse. The once glorious Zhou dynasty had fallen into decline. Feudal states rebelled, wars ravaged the land, corruption spread through the courts, the strong oppressed the weak, the virtuous were cast aside. Confucius saw it all. But rather than curse his time, he asked himself, how can one live with meaning in a world that has lost its meaning? When the way, Tao, is lost, there will be benevolence and righteousness. When benevolence and righteousness are lost, there will be propriety and ritual. The Analects 17:6. This saying was not only philosophy, it was a sigh from a soul witnessing the slow disintegration of human virtue. When the Tao, the natural order of rightness, disappears, humankind must build scaffolds of benevolence, Ren, righteousness, Yai, and ritual propriety, Lai, to keep itself from falling into the abyss. Confucius understood that morality could not remain mere words. It had to be reborn through conduct, through every relationship between human beings. His was an age of suspicion. People placed faith in swords more than in justice, in cunning more than in trust. Kings and nobles lost their moral compass. Scholars forgot the rights. And amid this storm, a poor, unknown young man dared to dream of a world governed by virtue, Di, and wisdom, Zhi. He who rules by virtue is like the North Star. It stays in its place while the other stars turn around it. The Analects, 2:1. Confucius believed that moral character holds a power greater than any throne. If a ruler lives with benevolence, Ren, his people will follow. If a father acts with righteousness, Yai, his children will learn by example. If a person reforms themselves, harmony will naturally emerge in society. This belief, naive, perhaps, to a cynical world, was in truth the greatest seed ever sown upon the earth. Imagine, then, a young man walking through the mud-soaked roads of the spring and autumn era, carrying in his heart a faith that only virtue could save the world. He had no armies, no crown, only his conviction in humanity. And it was this faith that performed the true miracle. It outlived empires, transcended centuries, and touched the hearts of billions over 2,500 years. The superior man understands what is right. The inferior man understands what will sell. The Analects, 4:16. In a world where profit had become the new deity, Confucius chose to stand with righteousness, Yai. That choice made him a moral beacon for all ages. He knew that no enduring order could ever be built on fear or coercion, only on trust and character. His difficult childhood and a decaying age did not break him. They forged his spirit into iron. Amid the long night of turmoil, Confucius became a flame of hope, not one that blazed briefly, but one that burned steadily through millennia. And like every flame, it began from a single spark, the yearning of a poor child to restore morality to humankind. Virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. The Analects, 4:25. Confucius was never truly alone, for though his era has passed, his thought continues to find neighbors in every age, those who still believe that a single virtuous person can change the world. Part 3. The path of public service and the aspiration to transform. From a childhood of hardship yet unwavering resolve, Confucius entered adulthood with a steadfast conviction that morality could save humankind, and humankind could in turn save the world. Yet that conviction was not nurtured by words, but by experience, by his own decision to step into the heart of power, where ideals and reality collide most fiercely: politics. Thus began Confucius's journey as an official, not in the splendor of rank, but in the humblest tasks of government, managing granaries, tending livestock, recording rituals. To others, these were menial duties, but to him, each task was an opportunity to cultivate virtue. D. When you serve your prince with loyalty and your father with filial piety, you can also serve the people with benevolence. The Analects. 2:21. Confucius believed that fulfilling small responsibilities faithfully leads to the ability to shoulder great ones. He did not seek power, but righteousness. Yai. When entrusted with the granary, he accounted for every grain with transparency. When overseeing herds, he tended every animal with care, seeing in them symbols of compassion. To him, true leadership began in the ability to guard the smallest things with a pure heart. The superior man does not, even for the space of a single meal, act contrary to virtue. The Analects, 4:5. Those early years laid the foundation for what would later become his doctrine of rectification of names that each person must live in accordance with their proper role and duty. An official must be upright, a citizen honest, a child filial. If the names of things are confused, society falls into chaos. He warned, if names be not correct, language is not in accordance with the truth of things. The Analects. 13:3. Yet Confucius soon realized, in a decaying court, morality is the least welcomed guest. He watched the powerful use ritual, Li, as ornament for deceit, and scholarship as a veil for greed. Politics had ceased to be the art of governance. It had become a game of domination. For a soul like Confucius, such a sight was a wound. When a man is not in the habit of saying, "What shall I think of this? What shall I think of that?" I can do nothing with him. The Analects, 15:15. He looked around and saw rulers who acted without thought, decision-makers devoid of moral reflection. Then he understood. The way, Tao, could not remain within palaces. It must walk the roads, till the fields, and dwell in the hearts of the people. Thus began his decades-long pilgrimage, leaving his homeland, Lu, and traveling through 14 states carrying no sword, no gold, only one treasure, the teaching of benevolence, Ren, righteousness, Yi, ritual propriety, Lai, wisdom, Ji, and trustworthiness, Xin. To govern is to correct. If you set an example by being correct, who would dare remain incorrect? The Analects. 1217. That was his dream, a nation where morality formed the foundation of rule. No swords would be needed, only the integrity of the one who leads. For him, political reform began not with laws, but with the human heart. But the path was not smooth. Confucius crossed harsh lands, met with suspicion and ridicule, often enduring hunger alongside his disciples. Once, trapped between two hostile states, he went 7 days without food. Yet even in despair, he continued to teach his students about virtue, Di, and wisdom, Ji. The superior man is distressed by his own lack of ability. He is not distressed by the failure of others to recognize his ability. The Analects 1518. Confucius harbored no bitterness toward the world. He did not demand recognition, only understanding. For to him, understanding was the deepest form of love. The kings he met sought him for reputation, not for truth. Some invited him merely to polish their image of virtue. Others rejected him for fear his presence might threaten their power. But Confucius kept walking, kept speaking, kept believing. He sought no glory for himself, only light for humanity. The superior man seeks what is right. The inferior man seeks what is profitable. The Analects. 416. At this point, Confucius's philosophy became a silent revolution. He did not seek to overthrow kingdoms, he sought to overthrow ignorance. And to do that, he needed no soldiers, only students. The young men who followed him, Yanhui, Zigong, Zilu, and others were more than disciples. They were heirs to the moral dream of mankind. They shared his hunger, his exile, his rejection, and also witnessed miracles. Wherever Confucius went, order slowly took root. Commoners came to listen, rulers came to inquire, and moral understanding began to sprout like seeds scattered across barren soil. Is virtue a thing remote? I wish to be virtuous, and lo, virtue is at hand. The Analects. 729. That saying encapsulates his entire journey. Morality is never far away. It lies within reach whenever one chooses to live by it. His career as an official and his long travels proved one eternal truth. Morality is never theory, it is action. It is commitment. He did not retreat from the world like hermits, nor rebel with violence. He chose the hardest path transformation through education and example. He who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger. The Analects. 2:15. Confucius believed that a society can only be redeemed when its people learn to understand, to correct themselves, to live in accordance with their names and duties. From that belief, he became the first great teacher of China, founding schools open to all classes, enlightening thousands of minds, laying the groundwork for 2 millennia of civilization. Though his political career did not succeed as he hoped, it was precisely that failure that immortalized his thought. For in a world where power shifts with every dynasty, only virtue endures. In the end, Confucius left the path of office, but never the path of the Tao. He once said, The wise find joy in water, the virtuous find joy in mountains. The Analects, 621. Perhaps he had found the joy of the sage not upon a throne, but in the flowing stream of disciples, ideas, and time itself. And so, from a humble official, Confucius became the teacher of all ages, a man who ruled no kingdom, yet guided half of humankind. Part 4. The virtue of Ren, compassion, and the core of morality. From the path of public service and the aspiration to transform society, Confucius gradually discerned a truth deeper than any regime could offer. True strength lies not in power, but in compassion. From here he began to shape his greatest teaching, the virtue of benevolence, Ren, the spiritual nucleus, the root of all virtues, and the wellspring of moral order within human society. If ritual propriety, Ali, is the outward form, righteousness, Ayai, the standard of action, and wisdom, Zi, the capacity to understand, then Ren is the inner soul, the warm breath of morality, the light that illumines every worthy deed. Without Ren, a person is but a body trained to behave. With Ren, a person truly lives as a human being. Is not benevolence, Ren, the foundation of all that is good? The Analects, 4-2. I, Ren, the breath of humanity. In the Analects, Confucius mentions Ren more than 100 times, yet Ren is neither soft-hearted pity nor blind kindness. Ren is the deep stirring of the heart, when we recognize the worth of others as our own. Ren means to love men. The Analects, 12:22. Simple yet profound, to love others. But to love others, one must first understand them, and to understand others, one must look within. Thus Confucius says, wishing to establish himself, he seeks also to establish others. Wishing to enlarge himself, he seeks also to enlarge others. The Analects, 6:30. Ren does not demand that we save the entire world. It begins with a simple disposition. If we desire peace for ourselves, let us allow others to dwell in peace. If we wish to be respected, let us respect others. From such empathy, a natural moral order arises not by statute, but by the heart. Here, Confucius presents the golden rule, a maxim that has become a universal ethical standard. Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. The Analects, 15:23. This sentence is so plain that anyone can grasp it, yet to live by it may require a lifetime of cultivation. It asks us to escape the narrow self and to place ourselves in another's position. In a world where each seeks his own advantage, this principle is the touchstone of morality. Suriku, Ren, the fountainhead of all virtues. Confucius regarded Ren as the root from which all other virtues branch. Li, Yi, Ji, and trustworthiness, Xin, all spring from Ren. Without Ren, Li becomes pretense. Yi hardens into coercion. Ji devolves into cunning. Xin shrinks into mere transaction. When benevolence is established, everything else follows. The Analects 4-2 Ren does not recognize social rank. It belongs to human nature. Anyone can cultivate it. One need not be born to wealth. It is enough to feel one's heart tremble at another's suffering. That is the beginning of Ren. Confucius once said, "Is virtue a thing remote? I wish to be virtuous, and lo, virtue is at hand." The Analects, 7:29. He believed that Ren is not far away, but within reach of each person. As soon as we choose to be humane, Ren appears. No one is born wholly good or wholly evil. It is our daily choices in the smallest deeds that determine the side we take. Third, Ren manifest in filial devotion, loyal duty, and empathy. Confucius did not speak of Ren as an abstract theory. He grounded it in life's most concrete relationships: child and parent, subject and ruler, friend and neighbor. Filial piety and fraternal submission are they not the root of benevolence? The Analects. 1.2 Filial devotion. Gratitude and respect for one's parents is the root of Ren. Whoever cannot love those who gave him life will find it hard to love humanity. Loyal duty, wholehearted commitment to one's responsibilities is filial devotion extended into society. Empathy. The ability to place oneself in another's circumstance is the warmth that makes Ren come alive. A humane person not only cares for the weak, but also sets bounds upon himself so as not to harm others. Thus, Ren is both feeling and principle. It is soft as water and strong as iron. Confucius taught his students, the man of humanity, wishing to be established himself, seeks also to establish others. The Analects. 6:30. Ren does not end in emotion, it compels action. The humane person does not merely pity, he enables others to stand firm. For this reason, Ren is the ethic of the strong, not the refuge of the weak. 4. Ren, the standard of governance. Confucius never severed personal morality from political ethics. For him, the best ruler is one who loves the people as his own children. He who rules by virtue is like the North Star. It stays in its place, while all the other stars turn towards it. The Analects. 2:1. The image of the North Star that Confucius employs is simple yet profound. A star does not move, does not command, and yet the whole firmament turns about it. This is the emblem of Ren in leadership. The leader need not coerce, he need only live virtuously, and the realm will align itself. He warned that ruling by force breeds only fear, whereas ruling by compassion engenders loyal hearts. If the people be led by laws, and uniformity sought to be given them by punishments, they will try to avoid the punishment, but have no sense of shame. If they be led by virtue, and uniformity sought to be given them by the rules of propriety, they will have the sense of shame, and moreover will become good. The Analects. 2:3. This is the difference between coercion and transformation. Violence yields temporary obedience. Compassion yields enduring fidelity. In a country ruled by Ren, order arises not from statutes, but from hearts that regulate themselves. Ren, a lifelong path of cultivation. For Confucius, becoming humane is not a destination, but a lifelong pilgrimage. He said, "At 15, I set my heart upon learning. At 30, I stood firm. At 40, I had no doubts. At 50, I knew the decrees of heaven. At 60, my ear was obedient. At 70, I could follow my heart's desire without transgressing what was right." The Analects 2:4. This is more than autobiography. It is the soul's itinerary. Each stage of life brings us nearer to Ren. Ren is not a gift of sages, but the fruit of discipline, self-examination, and steadfastness. The humane person must learn to master himself. To subdue oneself and return to propriety is perfect virtue. The Analects. 12:1. The greatest victory is not over others, but over oneself. In Confucius's world, the truly strong are not those who wield swords, but those who keep benevolence, Ren, amid chaos. 6. Ren, the bridge between humanity and heaven. Confucius spoke little of gods, yet within his thought, Ren is the bridge between human beings and heaven. When people live humanely, they are in harmony with the mandate of heaven. When they lose Ren, they sever themselves from cosmic order. He who offends against heaven has none to whom he can pray. The Analects, 3:13. To live with Ren is to preserve one's sacred bond with nature and moral law. It is not a religion, but a profound intuition of the eternal order in which heaven, earth, and humanity are one. In today's world, as compassion wanes and people chase wealth and fame, this message tolls like a bell of awakening. Ren reminds us that we truly exist only when we can feel another's pain and joy as our own. 7. Ren, the immortal. Warmth in Confucius's legacy. More than 2,500 years have passed, and Ren remains the beating heart of Eastern civilization. From China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam to the breadth of Asia, patterns of life, rituals, and social norms are suffused with the breath of Ren. It is no accident that billions of people across languages and faiths resonate with this teaching. Ren is the common language of conscience. It transcends borders and eras because it speaks to the one thing we all share, the human heart. The benevolent man loves others. The Analects, 12:22. Read in passing, this may seem too simple to sustain an entire philosophy, yet paradoxically, its very simplicity is what makes it endure. It is not knowledge, but love that grants permanence. Confucius said, "The way of the superior man is threefold, but I am not equal to it. Virtuous, he is free from anxieties. Wise, he is free from perplexities. Bold, he is free from fear." The Analects, 14:28. Among these three qualities, Ren is the root of all inner freedom. The humane heart is no longer haunted by fear, for compassion brings a deep peace, not from power, but from harmony with the way. Ren is not a distant theory to be read at leisure. It is an art of living. It teaches us to pause amid anger, to listen amid dispute, to forgive amid hurt. It warms a life grown arid by self-interest through small deeds, a gentle inquiry, a look of understanding. In the light of Ren, all are equal, for all possess the potential for goodness. Confucius did not believe in birthright distinctions between rulers and subjects. He believed we are born to learn to be human. By nature, men are nearly alike. By practice, they get to be wide apart. The Analects, 17.2, nature makes us similar, only our actions set us apart. And Ren is the lantern that guides those actions. Ren is not a lofty doctrine for idle hours. It is a way of life in the everyday. In Confucius's eyes, the person who tends a road with care, who speaks courteously, who considers others each, is practicing Ren. If earlier we witnessed Confucius leaving office to sow his teaching, here we understand why he chose Ren as the center. Only Ren can transform. Only Ren can make morality more than a concept. It becomes a warmth that touches the heart. To see what is right and not do it is the want of courage. The Analects, 2:24. Confucius did not teach us merely to think what is good, but to live it. Thus, when asked what constitutes the superior man, he replied, "The superior man acts before he speaks, and afterwards speaks according to his actions." The Analects, 2:13. Perhaps this is also the most beautiful definition of Ren. Speak little, do much, and let compassion lead the way. Across the long night of history, as powers shift and empires fall, Only Ren is the flame that does not go out. It glows quietly in every household, in lessons of filial devotion, in loyal friendship, in the way one person treats another. Ren is the heartbeat of humanity and the everlasting legacy Confucius bequeathed to the world. From here, Confucius's philosophy unfolds into other dimensions of the moral life: Li, order and harmony; Ji, understanding and insight; Xin, sincerity and honesty. Yet however distinct these values may be, they revolve around a single point of light: Ren, compassion, the substance of morality and the heart of all philosophy. Part V, Li, ritual propriety, order, decorum, and the form of compassion. If benevolence, Ren, is the heart of morality, then ritual propriety, Lai, is its form. In the world of Confucius, compassion is the inner light, while Li is the lamp that allows that light to radiate outward, illuminating and sustaining order among human beings. Without Li, compassion remains a vague emotion. Without Ren, Li is an empty shell. As Confucius once said, "If a man is without the virtues proper to humanity, what is he to do with the rights of propriety? If a man is without the virtues proper to humanity, what is he to do with music?" The Analects. 3.3. This saying opens a delicate relationship. Ren is the root, Li the branch; Ren the heart, Li the body. Without the root, the tree withers. Without the body, the root cannot blossom. Likewise, one may possess goodwill, but if one does not know how to express that goodwill appropriately, society collapses into sentimental disorder. Li in its original sense is not merely religious ritual or social etiquette. For Confucius, Li is order, discipline, and the language of respect. It teaches people how to conduct themselves so that compassion can touch others rightly and endure. Aioi. Li, the visible form of compassion. In the Analects, Confucius says, "Respectfulness, without the rules of propriety, becomes laborious bustle. Carefulness, without the rules of propriety, becomes timidity. Boldness, without the rules of propriety, becomes insubordination. Straightforwardness, without the rules of propriety, becomes rudeness." The Analects. 8.2, Li preserves every virtue from distortion. Without Li, respect decays into fear, courage into insubordination, honesty into rudeness. Li is like meter in music; it harmonizes the notes of feeling rather than letting them clash. For Confucius, Li is the framework that renders compassion tangible. One who knows Li is not a mere conformist, but someone who understands limits. In every act, speech, gait, eating, and drinking, in dealings with elders, parents, teachers, and rulers, Li is the expression of self-respect and respect for others. In ceremonies, it is better to be sparing than extravagant. In funeral ceremonies, deep sorrow is better than minute attention to observances. The Analects 3.4. Ritual, to Confucius, lies not in ostentation, but in sincerity. One stick of incense offered with a true heart is worth more than 100 hollow words. Likewise, Li has value only when illumined by Ren. 2. Li, social order and discipline. During the spring and autumn period, Chinese society descended into turmoil. Feudal lords contended for hegemony, rights decayed, subordinates no longer respected superiors, and superiors no longer modeled virtue for subordinates. In such circumstances, Confucius saw that the root of chaos lay not in war, but in the loss of Li. When names are not correct, language is not in accordance with the truth of things. When language is not in accordance with the truth of things, affairs cannot be carried on to success. The Analects, 13:3. Here Li is not merely ceremony, but the principle safeguarding social order. Each person has a position, a responsibility, a role the ruler be ruler, the minister minister, the father father, the son son. This is not to enforce hierarchies for their own sake, but to help each person know their place within the whole. When everyone oversteps those bounds, order dissolves and morality finds no ground. Confucius said, "Let the ruler be a ruler, the minister a minister, the father a father, the son a son." The Analects, 12:11. This is not a plea to entrench power, but a reminder of right relationships. Li is the invisible cord that binds all strata of society, ensuring that compassion is enacted within a framework, neither exploited nor deformed. Li nurtures self-discipline, a form of order that requires no punishment. A society imbued with Li needs few laws, because each person corrects their own conduct out of respect. If the people be led by virtue, and uniformity sought to be given them by the rules of propriety, they will have the sense of shame, and moreover, will become good. The Analects, 2.3. When people are educated through Li, they feel shame for wrongdoing, and that is the beginning of morality. It is not fear of law, but self-respect that keeps one upright. Third, Li and Ren, two halves of morality. Confucius never separated Li from Ren. If Ren is the motive, Li is the means. A compassionate person who lacks Li may unwittingly harm others. A punctilious person devoid of Ren is a hypocrite. Courtesy without sincerity is mere hypocrisy. The Analects, 3:26. Li is not theater, but the art of expressing compassion rightly. In Confucius's ideal society, Li sets the rhythm for all relationships: ruler and minister, father and son, husband and wife, friend and friend. If Ren inclines us toward the good, Li gives that good a shape, a rule, a harmony. However fragrant a flower may be, it still needs a bed of soil from which to grow. Li is that soil. Confucius says, respectfulness without the rules of propriety becomes laborious bustle. The Analects, 8.2. Li keeps kindness from becoming blind and emotion from exceeding its bounds. Love is not always right unless it is rightly expressed. Li and Ren are the two faces of living morality. Ren gives Li a soul, Li gives Ren a body. A society rich in Ren, but poor in Li becomes chaotic. One rich in Li, but poor in Ren, grows cold. Only when the two interpenetrate do people live both good and beautiful lives. A fool, Li sincerity, and the meaning of practice. Confucius stressed that Li has value only when performed with sincerity. In rites, it is harmony that is prized. The Analects, 1:12. Harmony not display, not extravagance. Li does not demand luxury. It demands a true heart. A rite without reverence is an empty shell, like a broken flute. In the Analects, Confucius repeatedly condemns the decadence of the aristocracy of his time-lavish sacrifices, masking empty souls. For him, Li is not to be shown to others, but to be felt as harmony between humanity and heaven. The rites serve as the means to express reverence and to keep order. The Analects, 1:13. Thus Li is both spiritual and humanistic. It is the language of gratitude. Gratitude to parents and ancestors, to heaven and earth, and to those we meet along life's way. Every bull, every word of thanks, every act of forbearance is a small li that reflects the great spirit of ethics. V. Lay in education, the discipline of character. Confucius regarded li as the foundation of education. He taught his students not only letters, but life. Li is the school of the soul. When you know a thing, to hold that you know it, and when you do not know a thing, to allow that you do not know it, this is knowledge. The Analects. 2:17. Study is not only for knowing, but for knowing how to behave. Li teaches humility, an awareness of one's limits and of the worth of others. In Confucius's classroom, every gesture and every word was a lesson in Li. The teacher did not merely lecture. He practiced Li in his treatment of students listening, being patient, demanding self-discipline. Without Li, learning is a tree without roots. To learn and at due times to repeat what one has learnt, is that not, after all, a pleasure? The Analects. 1.1. The joy of learning springs from harmony between teacher and learner, knowledge and morality, reason and compassion. Li is what sustains that harmony. 6. Li in politics, the power of example. In Confucius's political philosophy, Li is more potent as a means of transformation than law. He believed that leaders must teach by example, through courtesy, humility, and integrity. To govern means to rectify. If you lead on the people with correctness, who will dare not to be correct? The Analects. 12:17. Politics, in Confucius's understanding, is to rectify oneself and thereby govern others. A ruler who governs through Li needs no rod, for moral example compels the people to reform themselves. He who exercises government by means of his virtue may be compared to the North Polar Star, which keeps its place and all the stars turn towards it. The Analects 2:1. Li in politics is the restraint of power by morality. It prevents rulers from becoming tyrants and the people from becoming mere subjects, for Li binds both sides with mutual respect and duty. 7. Li in communal life. The art of harmony, Confucius envisioned an ideal society not as one of sameness, but as one in which each knows their place, respects others, and preserves concord. That is the spirit of harmony without uniformity. The gentleman aims at harmony and not at uniformity. The small man aims at uniformity and not at harmony. The Analects. 13:23. A society with Li is one where people speak at the right time, act in the right place, and behave in due measure. No one is forced to resemble another, yet everyone observes limits that prevent harm. In daily life, Li appears in greetings, in attentive listening, in the bow of apology, in yielding during debate. This is not mere politeness, but emotional intelligence, the art of concord. When you see a worthy person, think of becoming his equal. When you see an unworthy person, examine yourself. The Analects 4:17. Li teaches us to use others as mirrors, not as targets of judgment. Conflict does not vanish, but it is resolved through respect. 8. Li the bridge between humanity and heaven. As Ren is the breath of morality, Li is the bridge between human beings and heaven and earth. Through Li, we express gratitude and humility before nature and the cosmic order. He who offends against heaven has none to whom he can pray. The Analects 3:13. Confucius regarded Li as a sacred practice that helps us keep our rightful place in the universe, not so proud as to resist heaven, not so abject as to forget our dignity. Every courteous act, every sacrificial rite, every bow is a way to enter the rhythm of the way of heaven. Lead the legacy of harmony. More than 2 millennia later, Confucius's teaching on Li still resounds. From the courts of Japan to the Joseon dynasty, from Vietnamese family tradition to the Confucian households of China, Li has become the background music of East Asian culture. It lives in the way people greet with a smile, in the humility of speech, in the reverence of elders, and the forbearance of youth. Li has transcended the bounds of ceremony to become cultural habit, even moral instinct. The rites are not a mere matter of formality. They are the expression of reverence, the preservation of order, and the manifestation of harmony. Interpretation from the Analects 1:12 and 13. Conclusion. If Ren is the heart of morality, Li is the bloodstream by which that heart circulates life. Without Li, compassion dissipates. Without Ren, ritual is soulless. When Ren and Li become one, human beings attain harmony between feeling and reason, between individual and community, between humanity and the cosmos. Confucius offered humanity a simple yet profound secret. Human greatness lies not in strength, but in the capacity to behave fittingly. The gentleman is dignified, but not arrogant. The small man is arrogant, but not dignified. The Analects 13:26. This is the spirit of Li, maintaining dignity without arrogance, preserving order without forfeiting kindness. Part 6. Family and Filial Piety, Xiao. The root of society. After laying the foundation of ethics through benevolence, Ren, and shaping order through ritual propriety, Lai, Confucius turned his gaze to the place where all morality begins, the family. For he understood that a society is truly at peace only when each home is a world filled with love, reverence, and duty. In the Analects, Confucius says, filial piety and fraternal submission, are they not the root of all benevolence? The Analects 1:2. Filial piety, xiao, gratitude and reverence toward one's parents, is the root of every virtue. Just as a great tree cannot live without its roots, a person cannot become truly good if he forgets his origin. For Confucius, the family is the first school of morality, where one learns to love, respect, and live responsibly before stepping into society. The family, where morality is sown. Confucius believed that the way of being human does not begin in the court or in books, but in the home where every word, every act, every shared meal carries educational meaning. At home, a young man should be filial, and abroad, respectful to his elders. The Analects 1:6. A child who honors parents and loves siblings will, upon maturity, naturally respect superiors and protect the weak. Feeling within the family becomes a microcosm of the ideal society that Confucius envisioned. In his age, when war and corruption scattered hearts, Confucius realized that restoring a nation's ethics must begin with restoring filial piety in each household. For the state is an extension of the family, and peace under heaven can be attained only when the family is regulated. He who governs his state on the same principle as he governs his family is the truly virtuous ruler. Interpretation from the Analects 2:21. In Confucius's thought, the family is not merely a refuge of affection, it is a school of character. Parents teach by conduct, children learn with their hearts. Every instruction, every glance, every act of patience becomes a first lesson in being human. Stu, Xiao gratitude and the pillar of humanity. Throughout his life, Confucius emphasized Xiao as the root of all ethics. He said, "Filial piety nowadays means being able to feed one's parents, but even dogs and horses are able to do that. If there is no feeling of reverence, wherein lies the difference?" The Analects. 2.7. This statement is as sharp as a warning bell. Xiao is not merely material provision, it is reverence, respect, and love expressed from the soul. To feed one's parents is a duty, to understand their hearts and care for them with empathy that is filial piety. For Confucius, Xiao is not only a moral obligation, but a spiritual energy binding the generations. It keeps people connected to their roots, mindful of time's flow. While parents are alive, serve them according to propriety. When they are dead, bury them according to propriety, and sacrifice to them according to propriety. The Analects. 2.5. Funerary rites and ancestor veneration are not superstition, but ways of expressing gratitude to the past, so that we may live more responsibly in the present. In every stick of incense and every bow, there is gratitude to those who granted us life and the chance to live it. Third, Xiao and Zhong from family to state Confucius did not confine Xiao to the private circle of family. He believed that from filial piety, one learns loyalty, duty, and love for society at large. A man who is filial and brotherly will rarely be inclined to offend against his superiors. Such men will have no taste for stirring up rebellion. The Analects. 1.2. One who is filial to parents will naturally be loyal to the ruler, faithful to friends, and kind to the people. Whoever has learned gratitude at home will not betray those he honors. To Confucius, the state is but the larger family. The ruler is parent of the people, and the people are the children of the state. If a ruler treats the people as parents treat their children with love, instruction, and justice harmony, under heaven will arise of itself. He who rules by virtue is like the North Star. It stays in its place, while all the other stars turn towards it. The Analects. 2.1. Thus, Confucius taught that statecraft begins with the way of a child. If the people are filial to their parents, they will respect superiors, care for inferiors, and honor order. But if in each household parents are discourteous to grandparents and children defy their parents, then even 1,000 laws cannot prevent social disorder. 4. Shall not blind obedience, but loving wisdom. A common misunderstanding of Xiao equates it with blind submission. Yet Confucius, who all his life honored wisdom, Ji, and righteousness, Yi, never taught such a thing. In serving your father and mother, you ought to dissuade them from doing wrong in the gentlest way. If you see your advice is not accepted, remain respectful and do not oppose them. The Analects. 4.18. Here lies a subtle point. Xiao does not mean unconditional compliance. The filial child not only listens, but also remonstrates, correcting parents with respect and love. Thus, Xiao is reciprocal reverence that also transforms. Parents love, children give thanks. Children are filial, parents correct themselves. When both sides live by compassion and respect, the family becomes a place where morality is nurtured rather than imposed. Confucius said, "The superior man seeks harmony, not uniformity." The Analects. 13.23. A filial family is not one in which all are alike, but one in which all live in harmony through love and understanding. Differences do not divide. They become opportunities for insight and forbearance. V. Xiao in conduct and daily life. For Confucius, Xiao is not lofty speech, but simple daily action. In serving his parents, a son may gently remonstrate. When he sees that they do not incline to follow his advice, he shows an increased degree of reverence, but does not abandon his purpose. The Analects, 4:18. The way we speak with parents, the way we listen, the way we care for them in old age, these are expressions of Xiao. In the modern world, where career and ambition consume our days, this is a gentle reminder. Do not let filial piety become a regret. While your parents are alive, you should not travel far. If you do travel, you must have a fixed destination. The Analects, 4:19. Confucius did not forbid travel. He reminded us that a parent's peace of mind is a child's responsibility. When we leave home, leave reassurance, not worry. When we succeed, let our parents feel pride, not loneliness. To him, Xiao is not merely personal feeling, but a cord strung across generations past, present, and future. The filial child not only tends to parents, but also preserves the family's honor, living so as not to bring shame upon the ancestors. 6. Xiao, the transmission of morality and culture. Confucius viewed Xiao as a current flowing through time. In learning to honor parents, children also learn how to become parents. Thus, Xiao protects not only personal relationships, but the cultural foundation of an entire people. By nature, men are nearly alike. By practice, they get to be wide apart. The Analects, 17:2. It is through the practice of filial piety that characters diverge. A child raised in a filial home learns gratitude, patience, and responsibility. When such children come of age, they build society upon those same values. This is why Confucius said that Xiao is the beginning of Ren. Whoever is not filial to parents will find it hard to be humane toward others, for he has not learned the most basic lesson: to love those who have loved him. He who loves his parents will not dare to hate others. Interpretation from the Analects, 1:2. From filial piety at home, morality unfolds into loyalty at court, faithfulness among friends, and kindness toward all under heaven. A single ethical cord, gratitude, binds the entire social structure together. 7. Xiao and the balance of affection and reason. With deep wisdom, Confucius understood that Xiao cannot be mere emotion. It must be guided by reason. Without reason, affection becomes burden or blindness. When a man's father is alive, look at the bent of his will. When his father is dead, look at his conduct. If for 3 years he does not alter from the way of his father, he may be called filial. The Analects, 4:20. Keeping filial piety does not mean copying parents in every detail. It means honoring their spirit living according to the good they taught. The truly filial child is not an imitator, but an heir who develops inherited values. Thus, Xiao is at once loyalty to the past and responsibility toward the future. 8th, Xiao from personal ethics to cosmic order. In Confucius's vision, Xiao is not only a social norm, but also a bond between humanity and heaven and earth. He who offends against heaven has none to whom he can pray. The Analects, 3:13. Parents are the image of heaven in human life, givers of life, nurture, and guidance. To be unfilial to parents is akin to rebelling against the way of heaven. Conversely, to live filially is to live in harmony with the cosmos, with nature, with the Tao. Thus, Xiao becomes the point where human life meets cosmology. From honoring parents, one learns to honor heaven, earth, and humankind. This is the harmony Confucius pursued all his life. Nai, Xiao, a heritage of humanity. More than 2 millennia later, Confucius's concept of Xiao remains the soul of Eastern civilization. It shapes family structures, social ethics, and conceptions of character. From China to Vietnam, Japan to Korea, the values of filial piety live on in customs, reunion meals, ancestral altars, memorial days, morning greetings. Though the world has changed, Xiao endures as a cord tying past to present. The virtue of filial piety is the root of all moral teaching. Interpretation from the Analects. 1.2. Today, as modern life separates people and technology thins close bonds, Confucius's teaching is more necessary than ever. However far the world advances, one who loses the roots of family will also lose the roots of morality. Conclusion. Xiao is not a burden, but a fountain of happiness. It teaches us to be grateful for life, to love because we have been loved, and to live responsibly because there are those to whom we owe thanks. Confucius taught not only ethical precepts, but the meaning of life. A youth should be filial when at home and respectful abroad. He should be earnest and truthful. If he has energy to spare, let him study the polite arts. The Analects. 1.6. From the roof of the home, morality flows into the community. From filial piety, society learns loyalty. From kinship, humanity learns compassion. This is the path Confucius traced, a road that begins in a small family and leads to peace for the whole world. And thus, after Ren, Li, and Xiao, the moral picture of Confucius grows clearer. Ethics are not born in abstract theories, but in the living relationships between persons. From here, the philosophical journey continues to wisdom, Ji, the light of discernment, where understanding becomes the torch that illuminates compassion and propriety, completing the circle of the moral life. Part 7. The Junzi, the ideal model of personhood. After discussing filial piety, Xiao, the root of morality within the family, Confucius broadened his view to society, where he sought a model of personhood capable of uniting all moral values with practical action. That model is the Junzite superior man, symbol of ideal character, the summit of self-cultivation, and the very soul of Confucian philosophy. If benevolence, Ren, is the heart, ritual propriety, Lai, the form, and filial piety, Xiao, the root, then the Junzi is the fruit that blossoms from the entire moral tree. The Junzi is living proof of Confucius's teaching, not through lofty speeches, but through a life of simplicity, integrity, and resolve. The superior man understands what is right. The inferior man understands what is profitable. The Analects. 4:16. I, the Yunzi emblem of a complete character. In the turmoil of the spring and autumn era, when people chased fame and power, Confucius saw a crisis of humanity. One might be clever, influential, and wealthy, yet few lived rightly. Thus he fashioned the image of the Shunzino, a noble by blood, but a noble of the soul. By nature, men are nearly alike. By practice, they get to be wide apart. The Analects, 17:2. This statement expresses Confucius's deep humanism. Anyone can become a Junzi through self-cultivation. No one is born good or evil. There are only those who choose to learn the way, live by it, and hold fast to it. According to Confucius, the Junzi lives for righteousness, Yai, rather than profit, maintains integrity amid injustice, kindness amid hatred, and inner stillness amid chaos. The superior man is calm and composed. The small man is always full of anxiety. The Analects 736. The Yunzi does not need power to prove his worth, for his greatest value is inward virtue. Even in adversity, he remains steady as a mountain because he follows principle, not public opinion. Suru. The Junzi is not a hereditary noble, but one who cultivates himself. In archaic Chinese, Junzi originally meant the son of rulers, a member of the aristocracy. Confucius revolutionized this idea. He stripped away lineage and replaced it with moral standing. Whoever can discipline himself, live rightly, humanely, and sincerely is a Junzi, whether farmer, craftsman, or poor student. The superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions. The Analects 1429. The Junzi does not flaunt or boast. He lets deeds speak. His greatness lies not in status, but in how he deals with himself. Confucius taught, to see what is right and not do it is the want of courage. The Analects 224. The Junzi knows. Fear not fear of power or poverty, but fear of lacking the courage to do what is right. He lives honestly, neither selling his conscience for gain, nor abandoning justice out of fear. Third, core qualities of the Yunzi. Confucius described many virtues of the Yunzi. Gathered together, four stand at the core: integrity, modesty, benevolence, and courage. Integrity, righteousness, yai. The superior man regards righteousness as the substance of everything. The Analects 1517. Integrity is the primary foundation of the Yunzi. He is not blinded by profit. He may be poor, but not base, solitary, yet unwavering. For him, yi stands above gain. Confucius said, the superior man thinks of virtue, the small man thinks of comfort. The Analects 411. This resounds as a warning for every age. The Yunzi chooses hardship to keep his heart clean, loneliness to remain pure. Integrity is not easy, but it is essential to preserve dignity. Modesty, modesty. Qian. The superior man is dignified, but not arrogant. The small man is arrogant, but not dignified. The Analects 1326. The Junzi remains composed and humble. He need not prove himself with words, for true virtue needs no display. Modesty keeps him teachable, ever youthful in spirit, and open to knowledge. Benevolence, benevolence, Ren. The superior man loves others. The Analects 1222. The Junzi knows not only right from wrong, but also empathy. He does not rush to judge. He listens. He does not envy. He supports. Ren makes him a moral anchor for others because he lives with a sincere heart. Courage, courage. Yang. The superior man is not distressed by his lack of recognition. He is distressed by his lack of ability. The Analects 1518. The courage of the Junzi is not recklessness, but steadfastness in adversity. He does not require others' praise, for he knows the highest good is the ability to remain true to himself. 4. The Junzi, a lifelong learner. Confucius devoted his life to teaching and regarded study as the path to becoming a Yunzi. At 15, I set my heart upon learning. At 30, I stood firm. At 40, I had no doubts. The Analects 2:4. The Yunzi does not study to parade knowledge, but to reform himself, examine himself, and perfect his character. Learning widens his vision, deepens his understanding of others, and aligns his life with principle. For Confucius, to stop learning is to stop living. Learning goes beyond books. It is found in life, in mistakes, in each fall and rising again. The superior man seeks to perfect the admirable qualities of men and does not seek to perfect their bad ones. The Analects 12:16. He studies not to belittle others, but to understand and be more forbearing. The more he learns, the smaller he finds himself. The more he knows, the more he sees the need for humility. V. The Yunzi and the small man. Two divergent paths. Confucius often used contrast to clarify truth. The Junzi and the small man represent two directions of human nature. The superior man is concerned with virtue. The small man is concerned with comfort. The Analects 4:11. The Junzi looks outward to the community, to justice, to ye. The small man looks inward to advantage, to fame, to self. The Junzi holds to virtue even in weakness. The small man loses himself as soon as he gains power. The Junzi accepts loss to preserve honor. The small man betrays for profit. The superior man is affable, but not adulatory. The inferior man is adulatory, but not affable. The Analects 13:23. The difference is not in intellect, but in disposition. The Junzi lives for what is right. The small man for what is easy. One rises, the other slides. 6. The Junzi symbol of self-mastery and responsibility. One of the Junzi's greatest traits is self-control. The superior man does not, even for the space of a single meal, act contrary to virtue. The Analects 4:5. Self-mastery is not repression, but understanding and governing oneself. The Yunzi is not ruled by emotion or swept along by circumstance. He knows when to act and when to refrain, when to speak and when to be silent. For Confucius, the self-mastered person is free. He is not bound by wealth or swayed by opinion. He is bound only by morality, the one chain that makes humanity noble. The superior man is dignified but does not wrangle, sociable but not a partisan. The Analects 15:22. The Junzi keeps a gentle bearing, able to join with others without losing himself. He neither follows the crowd nor seeks to be different for display. He simply chooses to live rightly. 7. The Junzi in today's world. Though more than 2,500 years have passed, Confucius's Junzi remains a compass for modern life. In a competitive world where people are easily swept into the pursuit of status and money, the Junzi reminds us of inner value. A Junzi today could be anyone, a principled leader, a devoted teacher, an honest worker, or simply a person who dares to live rightly amid falsehood. The superior man acts before he speaks, and afterwards speaks according to his actions. The Analects 2:13. In an age of easy promises and commodified ethics, the Junzi is one who speaks little, does much, and guards trustworthiness, shin, as he would his soul. The Junzi is not a distant saint, but a person striving daily. He knows error and corrects it. He knows fear, yet does not flee. He knows weakness, yet does not collapse. He embodies Confucius's truth. The superior man is distressed by his own lack of ability, not by the failure of others to recognize him. The Analects 15:18. 8. The Junzi, a lamp for the age. In a noisy, unsettled world, the Junzi is a guiding light. When people waver between right and wrong, he continues straight. When society blurs truth and falsehood, he remains steadfastly honest. The Junzi need not be famous, for he does not seek outer light, he kindles light within. Virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. The Analects. 425. One who keeps virtue will, sooner or later, be followed. The power of the Yunzi lies not in authority, but in moral influence. He changes the world not by decree, but by example. Nai. Conclusion. In Confucius's philosophy, the Junzi is the convergence of all moral values. He loves Ren, respects Lai, gives thanks Xiao, stands upright Yai, keeps learning Ji, and remains faithful to principle Xin. If Xiao is the root, Ren the heart, and Li the body, then the Junzi is the flower, blossoming upon the moral tree, radiant yet humble, strong yet humane. Confucius did not produce a perfect man. He offered an ideal to which we may aspire. The Yunzi never claims to have arrived, for he knows morality is a journey without end. The way of the superior man is threefold. Virtuous, he is free from anxieties. Wise, he is free from perplexities. Bold, he is free from fear. The Analects, 1428. This is the portrait of the Junzi living, an ordinary life with an upward turned soul, able to love, to bear responsibility, and to stand when all values collapse. From here, Confucius's thought unfolds further. Having drawn the model of the ideal person, he leads us to the next step of morality, wisdom, Ji, the light of discernment by which intelligence illuminates action so that the Yunzi not only lives rightly, but lives luminously. Part 8. Education and lifelong learning. Knowledge as the path to being human. After sketching the figure of the superior man, Junzi, the moral ideal that Confucius upheld, we ask, how can a person become such a one? His answer lies not in power, lineage, or innate talent, but in education and lifelong learning. For Confucius, learning is not merely a road to knowledge, but a road to character. He did not teach people so that they might become officials, but so that they might become human. In an age when knowledge was monopolized by the aristocracy, Confucius launched a quiet yet great revolution: equality in education. In teaching, there should be no distinction of classes. The Analects, 1538. From this, Confucius's educational philosophy not only shaped the Confucian civilization, but also laid the foundation for humanity's humanistic ideal. Every person is capable of learning, self-cultivation, and becoming better. I learn to become a person, not merely to seek profit. In the spring and autumn era, study was a privilege of noble offspring. They learned to be appointed to office, to consolidate power and status. Confucius reversed the purpose of learning. He saw it not as a means to gain advantage, but as a journey toward personhood. Learning without thought is labor lost. Thought without learning is perilous. The Analects, Stu, 15. This statement lashes directly at those who study merely to boast or to chase fame and gain. For Confucius, one learns to understand only self, others, and life. The learner does not study to defeat others, but to conquer himself. The superior man learns in order to reach the way, not for the sake of gain. Interpretation from the Analects. 4.9. Confucius clearly saw a danger. When knowledge becomes a tool for self-interest, it ceases to be light and turns into a weapon of the ego. Hence he emphasized that only when learning walks with the way does knowledge truly have value. The object of the superior man is truth. The object of the small man is gain. The Analects, 4.16. In today's world, full of the seductions of fame, this teaching still tolls. like a bell of awakening. Knowledge is not glory, but responsibility. The more one learns, the more one must be humble and more deeply aware of one's limits. 2. Equality in education. Light for all before Confucius. Knowledge was regarded as the privilege of noble lineage. Commoners were excluded from the path of learning. But Confucius, himself of humble origin, broke down that wall. From the man who can bring me only a bundle of dried meat upwards, I have never refused instruction to anyone. The Analects. 7.7. This sentence, simple yet revolutionary, affirms that education does not discriminate by class. If there is a will to learn, anyone deserves instruction. At that moment, knowledge was liberated from power and became a common inheritance of humankind. Thus, Confucius was not only a philosopher, but a teacher of all. He opened classes wherever there were students' gardens, open lots, poor houses. He did not charge high fees. He asked only for a bundle of dried meat, a symbol of sincerity. When I walk along with 2 others, from at least one, I will be able to learn. The Analects. 7.22. Confucius not only taught his students, he also learned from them. In his eyes, no one knows everything, and no one is useless. Each person is a different book. The one who knows how to learn is the one who reads all those books with a humble heart. 3. Learning with practice, thinking with reading. Confucius's pedagogy never stopped at reading. For him, knowledge without practice is a shadow without a body. To learn and at due times to repeat what one has learned is that not, after all, a pleasure. The Analects. 1.1. Learning goes with reviewing, and review is not mere recall, but application. Each review is an act of practice, a deepening of understanding. Learning without practice, to Confucius, is vain toil. Practice without learning is dangerous for lack of direction. Learning without thought is labor lost. Thought without learning is perilous. The Analects. 2.15. He taught that learning must go with reflective thought. Learn to know, think to understand, act to become. If any one of these is missing, knowledge becomes distorted. The true learner continually asks, do I understand? Am I doing what is right? When you know a thing, to hold that you know it. And when you do not know a thing, to allow that you do not know it. This is knowledge. The Analects. 2.17. This is the summit of wisdom, to know that one does not yet know. A fool, the true learner. Humble and self-reflective Confucius did not regard the best student as the cleverest, but as the most humble. The superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions. The Analects. 14.29. Humility is the mark of authentic learning. The more broadly one studies, the more one senses one's smallness before the great sea. Conversely, those who have learned a little, yet grow conceited, are petty men of knowledge. Confucius taught that self-examination is the soul of learning. Every day I examine myself on 3 points. Whether, in transacting business for others, I may have been not faithful, whether in intercourse with friends, I may have been not sincere, whether I may have not mastered and practiced the instructions of my teacher. The Analects. 1.4. One who shines a light upon himself daily will not lose his way. He learns not to change others, but to change himself. Confucius saw learning as a process of becoming never perfect, never finished. The true learner does not say, I am enough, but always asks, can I be better? At 70, I could follow my heart's desire without transgressing what was right. The Analects 2:4. This is more than memoir. It is a philosophy of life. The path of learning is lifelong. Even at 70, Confucius remained a student of life. V. Learning to open the heart. From the individual to the community. In Confucius's thought, learning not only informs, it also opens the heart. True knowledge does not make one proud, it makes one empathetic. The wise are free from perplexities, the benevolent from anxiety, the brave from fear. The Analects 9:28. Knowledge leads to the triad of wisdom, Ji, benevolence, Ren, and courage. To understand is to love, and to love is to be brave. Those who understand life do not judge rashly. Those who understand people do not disdain. Those who understand the way are not fanatical. For Confucius, education does not merely produce literate people, it produces people who know how to live. The learner harmonizes emotions, understands ritual propriety, lie, and knows how to live peaceably with others. As knowledge spreads, society becomes more harmonious, for each person knows his or her place within the common order. The gentleman aims at harmony, not at uniformity. The Analects 13:23. Confucius saw in learning the power to heal society. When people listen and learn from one another, conflict ceases to be destruction and becomes an opportunity for mutual growth. 6. Learn for freedom. Learn to surpass oneself. In Confucius, learning is not limited by age, occupation, or circumstance. It is the path of freedom. He who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in danger. The Analects 2:15. Learning is not mere intake. It is the liberation of the mind from ignorance. The unlearned are imprisoned by prejudice. Those who learn without thinking are imprisoned by dead knowledge. Only those who both learn and think, both understand and act, are truly free. Confucius also said, "Is it not pleasant to learn and practice what you have learned?" The Analects 1:1. Pleasant joy. Learning is not a burden, but the joy of discovery. When we learn with an open spirit, every day becomes an adventure of the mind. Such learners are not bound by the past, nor threatened by the future. They live in the present, where knowledge and morality become one. 7. The legacy of Confucius's educational thought. More than 2,500 years have passed, yet Confucius's educational thought remains a guiding light for East Asian education and for humanity at large. In China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, this philosophy formed the spirit of revering teachers, loving learning, and lifelong self-cultivation. More profoundly, Confucius did not merely teach reading and writing, he taught the art of living. Virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. The Analects 4:25. The learner of virtue attracts others not by words, but by character. This is true education by example. Confucius did not build schools of brick, he built schools of persons. His disciples Yan Hui, Zi Gong, Zi Lu, and others carried that learning everywhere, sowing the seeds of humanity and wisdom for millennia. 8. Conclusion. Confucius's educational philosophy is no rigid system, but the breath of human life. We learn not to pass exams, not to boast, not to outdo others, but to know ourselves better, to live better, to learn and never tire of learning, to teach and never grow weary. This is the way of the superior man. The Analects 7.2. The lifelong learner does not persist because he is lacking, but because he understands that knowledge and morality have no limit. Each day of learning brings us closer to the ideal person drawn by Confucius, the Junzi, who lives simply, loves well, thinks clearly, acts rightly, and corrects himself. Thus, learning in Confucius is not merely a means of transmitting information, but a path that opens wisdom, ji, and morality. From benevolence, ren, to ritual propriety, lai, from filial piety, xiao, to the junzi, all are bound together by education, the eternal journey of the human becoming. And when the light of knowledge joins the light of compassion, human beings not only know how to live, but how to live rightly. That is the ultimate aim of Confucius's philosophy, to study in order to become human, not merely to know. Part 9. Harmony, concord, instead of conflict. From education and lifelong learning, Confucius leads us one step further on the journey of human perfection. When knowledge, virtue, and benevolence have been cultivated, the final destination of both society and humankind is harmony. The harmony between person and person, between humanity and nature, between the individual and the community. For Confucius, learning to be human is the beginning. Living in harmony is the goal. A society may grow wealthy through law, but it can endure only through virtue, ritual, and harmony. If the people be led by laws, and uniformity sought to be given them by punishments, they will try to avoid the punishment, but have no sense of shame. If they be led by virtue, and uniformity sought to be given them by the rules of propriety, they will have the sense of shame, and moreover will become good. The Analects 2:3. In this teaching, Confucius reveals a profound truth. Punishment breeds fear, while virtue and ritual, cultivate conscience. Fear may enforce obedience, but it cannot nurture goodness. Only virtue and harmony can establish true stability from within. Harmony. Not sameness, but respect for difference. One of Confucius's deepest insights is the principle of butong, harmony without uniformity. The gentleman aims at harmony and not at uniformity. The small man aims at uniformity and not at harmony. The Analects 13:23. Harmony does not mean everyone must think, act, or live the same. It is the capacity to coexist in differences, still respecting, still loving, still walking together toward goodness. Confucius likens society to a great symphony. Each person is an instrument with a distinct tone and rhythm. If all play a single note, the melody becomes monotonous. But when each fulfills their part and listens to the others, from difference arises beauty. In ceremonies, harmony is to be valued. The Analects 1:12. Harmony is the soul of propriety and the breath of morality. It does not erase conflict, but transforms conflict into concord. Just as in music, high and low notes do not negate each other, but together create depth. Thus, for Confucius, harmony is not the false quiet of submission, but the deep silence of mutual understanding. Harmony from the human heart to social order. Confucius believed that a harmonious society begins with harmonious hearts. Harmony arises not from law, but from conscience. When one cultivates himself with reverence, the virtue becomes genuine. When this genuine virtue is manifest, it will move others. The Analects 6:16. A harmonious person restrains the ego, listens before speaking, and yields without weakness. For strength provokes collision, while gentleness accommodates all. Harmony, in Confucianism, is not an abstract ideal, but an art of living. In family life, harmony is the foundation of filial piety, xiao. In community, it is the root of benevolence, ren. In politics, it is the essence of good governance. To govern means to rectify. If you lead on the people with correctness, who will dare not to be correct? The Analects, 12:17. A true leader must embody harmony, not ruling by force, but inspiring by virtue. When those above live in harmony, those below will naturally follow. When the people live in concord, the nation will be at peace. Third, harmony, the foundation of ethics and governance. Confucius held that a state's stability cannot be built on violence, but on virtue, di, and propriety, lie. A regime that governs by fear may endure for a time, but only one governed by benevolence and harmony will last. He who rules by virtue is like the North Star. It stays in its place, while all the other stars turn towards it. The Analects 2:1. The ideal ruler practices harmony, not imposing, but guiding. Such a leader creates a realm where every voice is heard and people live in order without losing freedom. Confucius taught that in governance, harmony, is the root of li, ritual. Without harmony, propriety becomes cold formality. Without propriety, harmony dissolves into chaos. Li gives harmony structure, and harmony gives li life. Harmony is the most precious element in the practice of the rites. The Analects, 1:12. Here, Confucius's political vision transcends his era. He speaks not of class struggle or absolute authority, but of balancea world sustained by mutual respect and cooperation. Of 4, harmony, the path of music and the art of living. In Confucian philosophy, music, yue, represents the highest symbol of harmony. It is virtue made audible. It is by the odes that the mind is aroused, by the rules of propriety that the character is established, and by music that harmony is perfected. The Analects 8.8. Music teaches people to listen, to moderate, to coordinate. Each instrument has its unique sound, yet when they yield to one another, melody is born. That is the society Confucius envisioned, a grand symphony of humanity. For him, music was not mere art, but moral education. When people learn to hear and feel true music, they become gentle, compassionate, and balanced. Thus, music bridges feeling and reason, heart and order. When one's feelings are expressed in words, and these words are sung, and the tones are prolonged and modulated, this constitutes music. Book of Rites, Liji. Music, like harmony itself, does not erase difference. It lets every difference shine. In that mutual resonance, humans perceive the beauty of existence. Harmony, from family to nation. As with all of Confucius's teachings, harmony begins in the smallest unit, the family. In the family, filial piety and fraternal submission, these are the root of all benevolence. The Analects, 1.2. A harmonious family is the seed of a harmonious society. When parents and children respect one another, when spouses listen, when siblings yield in kindness, such virtues radiate outward. Confucius taught that family harmony brings prosperity to all things. When hearts are at peace at home, all external affairs flow smoothly. But when the household is divided, no society can be stable. From family, harmony spreads to community. Neighbors who help each other, friends who empathize, nations that unite. This is the outward ripple of the Confucian vision. Cultivate yourself, regulate your family, govern your state, and bring peace to the world. The Great Learning, Dexu. Thus, Harmony is not only a political goal, but the moral pulse connecting self, family, and cosmos. 6. Harmony, the balance between humanity and nature. Though Confucius spoke little of nature, harmony with the natural world underlies his moral vision. Heaven and earth are vast, yet the way runs through them. Doctrine of the mean, Zhongyong. Heaven and earth operate in balance day and night, yin and yang, winter and spring. To live rightly, humans too must follow this rhythm. When people act with greed, arrogance, or indifference, they break nature's harmony and bring disorder upon themselves. Harmony, therefore, is not only social, but cosmic, a unity between moral law and natural order. The wise find joy in water, the virtuous find joy in mountains. The Analects, 621. The wise, like water flexible and deep. The virtuous, like mountains, steadfast and serene. Between mountain and water, Confucius found the image of harmony, strength hidden within peace. 7. Harmony, the legacy of a humanistic civilization. Confucius's idea of harmony, transcends Chinese philosophy. It has become a universal human value. Over 2 millennia later, his teachings echo across Asian cultures, the communal spirit of Japan, the courteous ethos of Vietnam, the triad of Renli He in daily life. In a world still torn by division and conflict, Confucius's harmony is anything but outdated. It reminds us that real strength lies not in victory, but in coexistence. The wise are free from perplexities, the benevolent from anxiety, the brave from fear. The Analects 928. Only when people possess wisdom to understand, benevolence to love, and courage to forgive, can they attain harmony. 8. Conclusion. Harmony in Confucian thought is a long melody beginning in the human heart and resonating to heaven and earth. It does not demand sameness, but teaches respect. It does not abolish conflict, but transforms it into understanding. The gentleman aims at harmony and not at uniformity. The Analects, 1323. That is the essence of Eastern wisdom, a simple yet profound lesson. Live as part of humanity's orchestra, where each person keeps their rhythm, listens to others, and together creates the symphony of peace. From benevolence, Ren, to ritual propriety, Lai, from filial piety, Xiao, to the gentleman, Junzi, and finally to harmony. The entire philosophy of Confucius forms a perfect circle, beginning with self-cultivation, expanding to family, extending to governance, and culminating in peace under heaven. At the circle's center, the light of harmony still burns, like the gentle music of humanity, blending wisdom and compassion, difference and empathy, humankind and heaven itself. Part X, Governance by Virtue, the ruler and the mission of moral transformation. After discussing harmony, the foundation of order and stability in society, Confucius delved deeper into the core of governance, the way of ruling through virtue. For him, human harmony cannot be achieved if rulers govern through power and fear alone. A just society must be led by those whose rule is rooted in virtue. Those who take benevolence, Ren, as their foundation, uprightness, Yai, as their direction, and love for the people as the thread that binds the realm together. If the ruler himself is upright, all will go well, even though he does not give orders. But if he himself is not upright, even though he gives orders, they will not be obeyed. The Analects, 13:6. Confucius saw the ruler as the wind and the people as the grass. The virtue of the gentleman is like the wind. The virtue of the small man is like the grass. When the wind blows over it, the grass must bend. The Analects, 1219. With this simple yet profound image, Confucius revealed the essence of leadership. Virtue is the wind, power is only the breath. The wind moves hearts, the breath merely stirs the air. Leadership is not domination, but guidance by example. Confucius lived in an age when feudal lords fought for power and kings ruled through violence and fear. He witnessed the collapse of moral order and the suffering of the people. Against that backdrop, he proposed a radically different ideal: to lead by example, not by coercion. He who rules by virtue is like the North Star. It stays in its place while all the other stars turn towards it. The Analects, 2-1. The North Star does not move, yet all stars align around it. Likewise, a virtuous ruler need not command often. The people will follow of their own accord. Confucius's model of governance was one of influence, not imposition. The ruler must become a moral model for the people, not through words alone, but through conduct. When the ruler is upright, the people trust. When he is sincere, they follow. To govern means to rectify. If you lead the people with correctness, who will dare not to be correct? The Analects, 1217. Here, uprightness, zheng, is the root of authority. A government built on swords and decrees may command obedience, but only moral integrity earns respect. Su, governance by virtue, the foundation of a harmonious society. While many rulers trusted in law and punishment, Confucius believed that virtue-based governance, deji, was the only enduring way. He did not reject law, but saw it as a tool. Virtue, in contrast, was the soul. Lead the people with virtue, and they will reform themselves. Lead them with punishment, and they will merely avoid wrongdoing. The Analects, 2-3. Rule by fear produces superficial compliance, not transformation. But when guided by virtue, people act rightly of their own will. This is the power of trust, not fear. For Confucius, the ruler must act as the parent of the people, minben, at once firm and gentle, fair yet compassionate. Power exists not to dominate, but to serve. The superior man thinks of virtue, the small man thinks of comfort. The Analects, 4-11. The virtuous ruler governs with principle. The petty ruler seeks pleasure. To rule by virtue is not weakness, it is the wisdom of restraint, knowing when to wield power and when to use compassion. Third, justice and compassion, the twin wings of true authority. Confucius knew that virtue without justice becomes weakness, while justice without compassion becomes tyranny. A ruler must therefore balance both. He who exercises government by means of his virtue may be compared to the North Polar Star, which keeps its place and all the stars turn towards it. The Analects, 2-1. Justice shows in placing the common good above self-interest, in speaking truth even when it offends the powerful, and in defending the weak even when it brings no advantage. To see what is right and not do it is the want of courage. The Analects, 2:24. Yet justice must be tempered by compassion. The benevolent ruler governs not with iron, but with understanding, seeing the pain behind the people's eyes. The benevolent man loves others. The Analects, 12:22. Compassion keeps the ruler close to his people, like a spring breeze warming the cold field, gentle enough to bring forth life, not storms. Humility and learning, the mark of a true sage king. Confucius believed that the higher one's station, the greater the need for humility. The gravest danger of power is not failure, but complacency. When you know a thing, to hold that you know it, and when you do not know a thing, to allow that you do not know it, this is knowledge. The Analects, 2:17. A wise ruler fears not to admit ignorance. He listens to the wise, values the capable, and corrects himself when mistaken. The tyrant, believing he knows all, begins his downfall in arrogance. The superior man seeks to perfect the admirable qualities of men and does not seek to perfect their bad ones. The Analects 12:16. Confucius advised rulers to nurture and honor what is good in others. A nation led by one who treasures talent and humbles himself before wisdom will naturally flourish. Vor. Power exists to serve, not to rule. One of Confucius's most humanistic ideas was his redefinition of power. For him, authority was not a tool of domination, but a duty of service. He who governs by virtue is like the North Star. The Analects, 2:1. The ruler stands not above the people, but among them to guide. He seeks not glory, but trust. If the people have no faith in their rulers, there is no standing for the state. The Analects 12:7. Faith is the pillar of the nation. When people trust, they will endure hardship. When trust is lost, no throne can stand. Thus Confucius urged rulers first to live with rectitude of name and role, the principle of Zhengming, rectification of names. Let the ruler be a ruler, the minister a minister, the father a father, the son a son. The Analects 12:11. When name and reality align, order arises. When they diverge, chaos begins. 6. The power of virtue. Influence through trust and moral example. Confucius believed that virtue radiates like light. A moral ruler transforms the people by the sheer power of example. Virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. The Analects 4:25. Virtue never stands isolated, for it naturally attracts others of kindred spirit. A virtuous ruler does not need coercion. His virtue itself is his authority. The superior man, by his calmness and sincerity, brings peace to the people. The Analects 8:2. Such a leader does not rule, but inspires. He does not force obedience, but awakens reverence. This is the soft power of virtue, stronger than armies or decrees, enduring beyond fear. 7. From self-governance to peace under heaven, Confucius declared that to govern a state, one must first govern oneself. If you cannot govern yourself, how can you govern others? Interpretation from the Great Learning. The classic progression: self-cultivation, family harmony, state governance, universal peace, Shushen, Shijia, Jiguo, Pingtianjia, is not a slogan, but a ruler's roadmap. A heart unenlightened by virtue cannot illuminate others. When the ruler is correct, the people are also correct. When the ruler is not correct, even though he gives orders, they will not obey. The Analects 13:6. Confucius did not teach kings how to rule. He taught them how to be worthy of being followed. In Confucian thought, leadership is not privilege, it is responsibility. The ruler bears the burden, not the reward. When he governs by virtue, power becomes a light to guide, not a whip to strike. A conclusion. Confucius's doctrine of governance by virtue is not merely political theory, it is a humanistic manifesto. It reminds us, power without morality breeds fear. Power enlightened by virtue breeds trust, and trust breeds order. He who rules by virtue is like the North Star. It stays in its place, while all the other stars turn towards it. The Analects. 2:1. From this image of the North Star, Confucius shaped the vision of the ideal ruler, humble yet strong, just yet compassionate, firm in principle, yet gentle in spirit. In our modern world, where power is often corrupted and leadership estranged from conscience, Confucius's vision remains a mirror for the moral soul. The greatest leader is not the one whom people fear, but the one whom they trust and in whose example they become better themselves. Thus, from benevolence, ren, to ritual propriety, li, from filial piety, xiao, to harmony, he, Confucius's philosophy reaches its culmination in virtue-based governance, deji, where morality becomes not only the root of the individual, but the flame that lights the nation's path. It is the way of light, the way of leading by virtue, where humanity is guided not by swords, but by trust, uprightness, and compassion. Part 15th, Justice and Humaneness in Judgment. After discussing governing by virtue, where those in power transform rather than dominate, Confucius goes further into the nature of justice, for he understood that even a virtuous leader, if he does not judge with humaneness, can turn justice into a cold blade rather than a torch that lights the way. Confucius perceived clearly that justice is not merely the punishment of the wrongdoer, but a process of restoring order and goodness within the human heart. Right judgment does not exclude, it reforms, guiding people back to the way. In hearing litigations, I am like any other man. What is necessary is to cause the people to have no litigations. The Analects. 12:13. This statement opens a grand conception of justice. The goal of governance is not to decide each case flawlessly, but to build a society that has no cases to begin with. Justice. The balance between law and compassion. In Confucius's time, law was often a tool to preserve power. The guilty were harshly punished, the weak were neglected, and justice became a game for the strong. Yet Confucius, with a vision ahead of his age, held that justice cannot be severed from humanness, benevolence, ren. He who rules by virtue is like the North Star, which stays in its place, while all the other stars turn towards it. The Analects. 2.1. Law without morality is a lifeless machine. Humaneness without principle decays into sentimental weakness. Therefore, Confucius affirms, justice is the art of keeping reason and compassion in equilibrium. Govern the people by regulations, keep order among them by chastisements, and they will flee from you and lose all self-respect. Govern them by virtue, keep order among them by rights, and they will keep their self-respect and come to you of their own accord. The Analects. Point 3. Justice should not be the people's fear of punishment, but their self-mastery before moral law. Punishment too severe yields violence. Too lenient yields lawlessness. Only when justice is illumined by humaneness do people truly change from within. 2. The aim of justice is not retaliation, but the restoration of conquered. Confucius taught that justice must not be executed as revenge, for retaliation merely prolongs resentment. Rather, justice should rebuild the harmony that has been lost. Repay injury with justice, and repay virtue with virtue. The Analects 14:36. This saying is often misunderstood. Confucius does not endorse vengeance. He warns against allowing goodness to be exploited. Wrong must be corrected by what is right, not by hatred. Justice for him restores moral order. It does not annihilate. He knew that humans are imperfect. Error is part of our nature. Therefore, a judge must have the intelligence to understand and the heart to forgive. The superior man, in judging of others, allows for their motives. Interpretation from the Analects, 1911. In Confucius's view, justice is not the dryness of clauses, but light cast upon the human heart, where good and evil intertwine, where reason contends with feeling. Only humaneness can make justice a force of reformation rather than destruction. Third, those in power must understand the person. Before passing judgment, Confucius emphasizes that judgment begins not with the sentence, but with understanding. A ruler who sees only the crime and not the person, only the fault and not its causes, turns justice into injustice. When a man's faults are pointed out to him, he should be glad. The Analects, 1908. Right judgment does not humiliate. It opens the door to awakening. Thus, a virtuous leader discerns in others' faults a veiled plea for help. The superior man seeks to perfect the good in others, not the evil. The Analects, 12:16. This is the essence of humaneness and justice, to see the person behind the fault. When leaders listen, empathize, and put themselves in the place of the judged, justice ceases to be a wall and becomes a bridge toward atonement. Confucius said to his disciples, "To be wronged is nothing unless you continue to remember it." The Analects, 1525. He taught that forgiveness is the highest form of justice, the justice of the heart. It does not erase responsibility. It opens a path for a new beginning. A fool, justice and humaneness. Two sides of one coin. If justice stands alone without humaneness, society grows cold. If humaneness stands alone without justice, society grows chaotic. Confucius holds that the two must accompany each other like yin and yang, like water and earth, like reason and affection. The wise are free from perplexities, the benevolent from anxiety, the brave from fear. The Analects, 928. Wisdom makes justice exact. Humaneness makes it humane. When wisdom and humaneness are joined, judgment becomes constructive rather than destructive. Confucius told of an upright magistrate who never decided cases at once. He would pause long in silence, then say, "I do not seek to condemn, I seek to understand." Interpretation from the Analects. To understand before judging, this is the golden rule of human-centered justice. A just sentence is measured not by its severity, but by how many it keeps from falling again. V. Confucius as forerunner of restorative justice. More than 2 millennia before the modern world spoke of restorative justice, Confucius sowed its seed. He did not envision a society where people are merely punished, but one where people are morally restored. To see what is right and not to do it is the want of courage. The Analects, 224. Those in power must dare to do what is right, however hard. Yet what is right is not only to penalize, but to rebuild trust. Justice is not a descending sword. It is a hand that lifts. In judgment, leaders must remember that the aim is not to eradicate evil, but to awaken the residual good. Even in the offender, Confucius believed, a light of humanity remains only obscured. By nature, men are nearly alike. By practice, they get to be wide apart. The Analects, 1702. No one is born wicked. Society, circumstance, greed, or fear lead astray. Without humaneness, justice only pushes them farther from the way. 6. The beauty of justice lies in principled forgiveness. Confucius does not deny punishment. He holds it should be the last resort, When every path of reformation has failed, the superior man wishes to be slow in speech but quick in action. The Analects 4:24. The virtuous judge is not hasty to condemn, but patient to understand. He is neither ruled by emotion nor blinded by power. Forgiveness, for Confucius, is not weakness, but the act of the strong, those resilient enough not to be governed by resentment. Recompense injury with justice, and recompense kindness with kindness. The Analects 14:36. This is justice that respects the limits of humaneness, and humaneness that honors the discipline of justice. Together they form the beauty of moral governance, stern yet luminous, firm yet warm. 7. Conclusion. In Confucius's philosophy, justice is not an unfeeling scale, but a heart attuned to truth and to persons. Justice without humaneness is systematized violence. Humaneness without justice is aimless softness. Only when the two are united do we truly live under a moral order. The gentleman is easy of mind, while the small man is always full of anxiety. The Analects 7:36. The gentleman, Junzi, judges with a tranquil heart, acting by principle, not by rancor. The petty man judges with unrest, acting from emotion, not from fairness. Confucius bequeathed an ageless lesson. Justice is not the punishment of the wicked, but the restoration of people to the good. When rulers understand before they judge, and let virtue, D, illuminate law, society needs fewer courts, for every heart becomes a balance that corrects itself. Thus, after governing by virtue, Confucius lays the final stone for moral statecraft. Justice must walk with humaneness. From here, his philosophical path advances another step toward living in harmony among heaven, humanity, and the way, where justice is no longer mere penalty, but the light that restores trust and human dignity. Part 2. The Golden Rule: do not do what you would not wish for yourself. After discussing justice and compassion in judgment, Confucius leads us to the highest point of ethics, where every good, every humanistic value, and every path of self-cultivation converges upon one simple yet everlasting principle. Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. The Analects 15:23. This saying, called the Golden Rule, is the quintessence of Confucius's entire system of thought. It is not merely moral advice, it is a compass for humankind, transcending time, borders, religions, and social ranks. I, the core of morality, placing oneself in another's position. Throughout his life, Confucius sought a way for people to live together without harming one another. He perceived that social disorder, conflict, and hatred all begin in selfishness. When one knows only oneself and forgets others, morality collapses. Therefore, he laid the foundation for a principle at once simple and great. See the world through another's eyes. Is there one word which may serve as a rule of practice for all one's life? The master said, is it not reciprocity? What you do not wish for yourself, do not do to others. The Analects 15:23. This is the way of empathy. One need not memorize 1,000 good deeds. Only this: do not inflict on others what you most fear for yourself. In a divided world, that teaching sounds like a bridge joining human hearts. For once we can place ourselves in another's position, we cannot be cruel, indifferent, or malicious. Sems, stopping small, evils, before they spread. Confucius understood that evil does not begin with brutality, but with indifference, an unconsidered word, a selfish act, a silence in the face of injustice. These are the seeds of chaos. The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. Interpretation from the Confucian Analects, inspired by 919. Conversely, good is also sown by small things. A smile, a helpful gesture, a kindly word. Such seemingly minor acts can halt the spread of callousness. Thus, practicing the golden rule lies not in lofty theories, but in daily actions. When we hold back a remark that would wound, curb anger, rather than answer violence with violence, or refuse personal gain that harms others, we are living Confucius's way. Virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. The Analects, 425. Goodwill spreads like light. When one person masters himself, the whole society is illumined. Third, practice through self-discipline and daily self-examination. Confucius did not trust in morality imposed from without. He trusted in morality born of inner self-examination. Every day I examine myself on 3 points. Whether, in transacting business for others, I may have been not faithful. Whether, in intercourse with friends, I may have been not sincere. Whether I may have not mastered and practiced the instructions of my teacher. The Analects, 1.4. The golden rule cannot be merely spoken. It must be trained as a habit of the soul. It requires discipline, for the human impulse tends towards self-interest. Only by questioning ourselves daily. If I were in their place, would I wish to be treated thus? Can we keep a straight heart amid life's temptations? To subdue oneself and return to propriety is perfect virtue. The Analects 12:1. Confucius called this self-conquest and returned to ritual propriety. Lai, conquering oneself to return to the way. Victory over others is temporary power. Victory over oneself is victory everlasting. Those who practice the golden rule need not display their virtue. Its quietness and humility are virtue already. 4. The golden rule, a common foundation of human morality. It is wondrous that the principle articulated by Confucius more than 2,500 years ago does not belong to China alone. It has become a common denominator of conscience. In the scriptures we read, "Do to others as you would have them do to you." Luke 6:31. In Greek philosophy, Socrates is recorded as saying, "Do not do to others that which would anger you if others did it to you." In Buddhism, we hear, "Consider others as yourself." Different civilizations, languages, and religions converge on the same point: compassion. Confucius was the first to express the principle in negative form, "Do not do what you would not wish," because he grasped that self-restraint is the first step toward morality. Rather than command innumerable good deeds, he taught us to cut off evil at the root ourselves. The power of simplicity. The golden rule bears the simplest beauty of morality. It requires no abstruse learning, only a wakeful heart. A child can understand it, a king must remember it. By nature, men are nearly alike. By practice, they get to be wide apart. The Analects 17:2. Good and evil do not lie in nature, but in choice. The golden rule is the compass that keeps us from losing our way in the forest of desire. Where a society lives by this principle, law grows lighter and morality more natural. When each individual asks, "If I were they?" conflict dissolves, hatred fades, and the harmony he, Confucius, dreamed of becomes reality. The benevolent man loves others. The Analects 12:22. For love needs no definition, it only needs to be lived. 6. Conclusion. From benevolence, Ren to ritual propriety, Li from harmony, He to virtue-based governance, De, and now to the golden rule. The whole of Confucius's philosophy gathers into a single point, the awakening of the heart. Those who can place themselves in another's position will never be cruel. Those who examine themselves daily will not go astray. Those who restrain small evils within will never unleash great evils upon society. What you do not wish for yourself, do not do to others. The Analects 15:23. This saying, seemingly a mere moral preceptus, in truth a gate to inner peace and to peace among nations. When each heart pauses before wounding another, the world needs neither wars, nor verdicts, nor walls of division. Confucius left no weapons and founded no empire, yet he gave the world a single sentence that changed humanity, a simple sentence, strong enough to keep human conscience alive. What you would not wish for yourself, do not do to others. It is not only a moral principle, it is a hymn of benevolence, sounding without end among humankind. Part 3. Tradition and renewal, keeping the roots, while reaching upward. After reflecting on the golden rule, do not do to others what you would not wish for yourself. Confucius went one step further in his philosophical journey. How can moral values endure beyond individual hearts, to be preserved, passed on, and renewed through generations? For if morality is not continued, it is like a flame that burns briefly and dies in the wind. Here, Confucius set forth one of the greatest cultural insights in human history, the balance between tradition and innovation. I transmit, but do not create. I am faithful to and love the ancients, the Analects. 7.1. This was not self-deprecation, but a subtle affirmation. Confucius did not worship the past blindly. He was a transmitter of its spirit one who revived rather than replicated. I, tradition as the root, the soul of a nation and humanity. For Confucius, tradition was not a chain of bondage, but the root that nourishes the soul. He lived in an age when the rituals and music of the Zhou dynasty had decayed, morals had weakened, and people were estranged from their origins. Amid that decline, he bowed toward the past to find the spring of human virtue once more. The superior man is not an implement. The Analects 2:12. He did not want people to become mere tools of circumstance, but to see themselves as part of a great historical flow, to know why they exist. For one who does not know where he comes from will never know where he is going. Tradition, to Confucius, was more than rites, music, or customs. It was the distilled wisdom of generations, those who had lived, suffered, loved, lost, and learned what truly endures. Thus, to honor tradition is to honor the collective memory of humankind. He who by revising the old knows the new is fit to be a teacher. The Analects 2:11. Preserving the old is not clinging to the past, but understanding the present through it. One who practices reviewing the old to know the new, onko enei tritan, truly revives the spirit of the ancestors. 2. Innovation as the branch keeping morality from withering Confucius never told people to look backward only. He knew that if form is preserved but spirit forgotten, tradition becomes a corpse. Without renewal, even the most sacred custom crumbles into dust. The superior man seeks what is right, the inferior man seeks what is profitable. The Analects 4:16. The superior man, Junzi, preserves the old, not because it is useful, but because it is right. Yet right does not mean unchanging. Confucius's way is one of adaptive virtue, to change with the times, to ithoi ni bien, without betraying the core spirit. He did not reject change, he rejected change without roots. If tradition is the root, renewal is the branch, and the branch cannot live if the root is dead. The master said, in ancient times, those who wished to make their virtue illustrious first ordered well their own states. The great learning innovation for Confucius is not destruction, but clarification, to brush away the dust from old truths so they shine anew. Like a gardener, one does not cut down the old tree to plant another. One prunes, waters, and nourishes it so that it may bloom again. Third, understanding why the ancestors acted reviving spirit, not form one of Confucius's deepest teachings, is this: do not merely imitate the ancients, understand them. Form without essence is hollow. When substance exceeds refinement, one becomes rude. When refinement exceeds substance, one becomes foppish. Only when substance and refinement are properly blended is the gentleman achieved. The Analects, 6:18. Confucius saw in his age many who kept the rites, but lost the heart people who bowed correctly, sang in rhythm, but felt no reverence within. Thus he warned, ritual without sincerity is but empty motion. Respectfulness without the rules of propriety becomes laborious bustle. Carefulness without the rules of propriety becomes timidity. The Analects 8:2. To preserve tradition, one must first ask why before how. Only when we grasp the spirit our ancestors embedded benevolence, reverence, humility, filial devotion, can our actions possess life. In today's rapidly changing world, that lesson rings truer than ever. We may wear the garments of modernity, yet if the soul within is empty, civilization becomes only a shell of morality. 4. Balancing past and present. The secret of cultural endurance. Confucius never wished humanity to return to the Zhou dynasty, nor to abandon progress. He sought harmony, between past and present, between ancient wisdom and modern need. The wise find joy in water, the virtuous find joy in mountains. The Analects, 6:21. Wisdom, like water, flows ever adapting, ever seeking new paths. Virtue, like mountains, stands firm, unchanging in essence. Between water and mountain, between movement and stillness, Confucius saw the secret of cultural longevity. Tradition must renew itself to live. Renewal must root itself in tradition to stay true. A civilization that preserves its old soul in new form will never die it, will only transform into higher expressions. He who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in danger. The Analects, 2:15. To preserve without reflection is superstition. To innovate without learning is self-destruction. Confucius taught us to study the old with a new mind and to view the new with an old heart. Thus we advance without forgetting the way home. Conclusion. In today's world, where humanity races after technology, speed, and profit, Confucius's vision of tradition and renewal whispers softly yet profoundly. To go far, we must have roots. To rise high, we must hold fast to them. He who by revising the old knows the new is fit to be a teacher. The Analects, 2:11. Tradition is memory, renewal is hope. A people who can unite the two will never lose themselves, no matter how their world changes. Confucius never told us to return to the past. He told us to carry the past with us into the future. For only when we know where we come from can we know where we are going and why that road matters. That is the eternal spirit of Confucian culture, to keep the ancient soul alive while planting new seeds, to live in the present, yet still hear the echo of sages from 1,000 years ago. Part 9th. The power of small, daily actions. After discussing tradition and renewal, where Confucius teaches us to keep our roots while reaching upward, he brings that thought closer to home, to the realm where philosophy no longer resides in books, but breathes within the rhythms of everyday life. For if morality is not practiced daily, it is like a spring blocked in the desert. There is a source, but no water. Confucius once said, "The man of virtue is not concerned that no one recognizes his merits. He is concerned about his own worthiness." The Analects. 4:14. For him, human strength does not lie in resounding feats, but in how one lives through the smallest things. A kind word, a just deed, a patience sustained amid anger, each is a seed of virtue. Virtue begins with the most ordinary things. In a noisy world hungry for grandeur, Confucius chose to speak of small matters. He understood that no great act is born of accident. All greatness crystallizes from small habits repeated with steadfast resolve. When we see men of worth, we should think of equaling them. When we see men of a contrary character, we should turn inwards and examine ourselves. The Analects. 4:17. The ethical person is not one who waits for chances to do great deeds, but one who never misses the chance to do the small thing rightly. Confucius taught his students that in a gentle word dwells the strength of goodwill, in a just gaze, the power to sow trust. This is the foundation of a humane society where goodness need not be displayed, for it spreads of itself like fragrance in the air. He who exercises government by means of his virtue may be compared to the North Star, which keeps its place, and all the stars turn towards it. The Analects. 2:1. If leaders are the North Star, then honest people are the smaller lights that make the sky bright. Each act of kindness, however small, is a ray that illumines the night. 2. Do the small thing right, and the great will come of itself. Confucius believed that the road to wisdom is not a leap, but a long journey woven from countless patient steps. The cautious seldom err. The Analects. 4:23. Those who are careful in small matters seldom err in great ones. By contrast, those who despise small matters are easily undone before larger trials. Confucius did not advocate mediocrity. He urged us to prize steadfastness. One who restrains his tongue today will have the composure to guide 100 people tomorrow. One who shares a morsel with the hungry may one day lead a community by benevolence. Ren. Virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. The Analects. 4:25. Whoever does the small thing rightly naturally gathers other kind hearts. Like a drop falling upon a lake and widening into concentric circles, goodness spreads without drums or banners. Third, a good society is built from millions of small acts by upright citizens. Confucius trusted in the strength of a moral community. He did not place his hope in rigid laws or absolute power, but in hearts that live uprightly and humanely. Lead the people with virtue, keep order among them with rights, and they will keep their self-respect and come to you of their own accord. The Analects. 2.3. A durable society needs not excessive punishments if each citizen sets a law for himself, the law of conscience. An honest farmer at market, a child greeting elders with courtesy, a fair-minded teacher in the classroom. These seemingly small things are the very foundations of order and trust. Without personal ethics, there can be no social ethics. Confucius said that governing a state cannot begin with force. It must begin with self-cultivation in the smallest details of daily life. To govern yourself first, and only then to govern others. Interpretation from the great learning. If each person knows how to govern himself, correcting himself day by day, a nation will not require coercion. Thus, a good society is not built in parliaments, but in each family, each classroom, each street, where people practice morality quietly. 4. Virtue, the lamp of everyday life. Confucius believed that the light of virtue does not flare up only in great moments. It burns steadily within the smallest gestures. It is the light in the filial child, in the friend who keeps his word, in the patient teacher, in the employer who listens. The superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions. The Analects, 1429. The superior man does not need many words, his actions suffice. Confucius did not praise heroes who trumpet morality. He admired those who live it without speaking of it. A kind word can save one who is in despair. A fair gesture can rekindle faith in justice. A patient act can avert a conflict. Each small thing, seemingly nothing, has the strength to change the world, from within outward, from one person to multitudes. He who wishes to secure the good of others has already secured his own. The Analects, 630. Whoever brings good to others is building peace for himself. For virtue is not a gift given away, but a light that shines back upon the giver. V. Living fully in the small Confucius's lesson for the modern age. Today people race after fame and long for grand success, forgetting that every greatness is made of small deeds done with love. Confucius would ask us, can you keep your heart calm when insulted? Can you speak kindly when weary? Can you be just when no one is watching? If the answer is yes, then you are living rightly, even if no one knows your name. To see what is right and not to do it is the want of courage. The Analects, 224. Morality is not knowledge, but the courage to act upon the right. Each day, each person faces choices between right and wrong, between humanity and selfishness. In these small choices, the destiny of the world is written. Confucius does not require us to become saints, suddenly to become good, moment by moment. Do the small thing rightly, and the great will come, because the universe leans toward honest hearts. 6. Conclusion. Confucius's teaching on the power of small actions is not merely moral instruction, it is a declaration of human worth. The world does not need grand heroes of rhetoric, but ordinary people of the heart, those who dare to be kind when unseen, to choose fairness at a cost, to be patient in a hurried age. He who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. Interpretation from the Analects. 919. A mountain is moved by little stones. A good society is raised by small deeds, by millions of hearts choosing what is right and beautiful. This is the undying spirit of Confucius's way. Live well in the smallest things, for the small becomes the soul of humanity. Part 15. Art and Music. Cultivating the heart and refining humanity. After reflecting on the power of small daily actions, where morality reveals itself in every word and gesture, Confucius expands his vision even further. Virtue is not nourished by reason alone, but also by beauty. And among all forms of beauty, music and art are the deepest paths for nurturing the heart and enlightening humankind. It is by the odes that the mind is aroused, by the rules of propriety that the character is established, and by music that the finish is given to it. The Analects 8:8. For Confucius, art is not entertainment. It is the means by which man rediscovers harmony between heaven, earth, and humanity. In music, he saw the order of the cosmos. In ritual, Li, the order of society, and in beauty itself, the reflection of moral goodness. I, music and art nourishment. For the soul, Confucius once said, the wise find joy in water, the virtuous find joy in mountains. The Analects 6:21. Water and mountains, one in motion, one in stillness, symbolize the rhythm of life. Music, he taught, unites the two. Movement within order, emotion within restraint. In an age scarred by violence and disorder, Confucius saw music as medicine for the soul, softening the heart, teaching compassion, and awakening humanity's sense of beauty. Music produces a kind of pleasure which human nature cannot do without. The Analects 17:11. A society that knows how to cherish true music, the music of harmony, the music of benevolence, Ren, will become gentle and just. But if music and art are reduced to tools of desire or vanity, the human spirit withers. Su, harmonious music, the reflection of cosmic order. In Confucius's worldview, the universe itself is a vast symphony, the interplay of yin and yang, the communion of heaven and earth, the pulse of moral rhythm, flowing through all beings. True music mirrors this order. Let the sounds of man be in accord with the harmony of heaven. Interpretation from the Book of Rites. Music is more than sound. It is the language of the Tao, the way. A note out of tune, like a misdeed, can disturb the harmony among people. Thus, the student of music, in learning melody, must first purify the heart. When Confucius heard the Shao, the ancient hymn of a flourishing age, he was so moved that for 3 months he did not know the taste of meat. Not because he had lost appetite, but because his soul was fed by beauty. For him, music could make one eat little, yet be full, speak little, yet be wise, live simply, yet live deeply. When one has mastered the music of the ancients, one's mind becomes enlarged and one's manners refined. The Analects 7:14. Art, therefore, is not apart from virtue, it is virtue expressed. If morality is the order of the heart, art is the melody of that heart when it sings. 3. Where art is honored, people are gentle. Where wealth is worshipped, people grow harsh. Confucius understood that a society which honors art preserves balance between reason and feeling, between law and compassion. He warned that when art is displaced by materialism, people become coarse and shallow. The superior man is calm and at ease. The small man is always full of anxiety. The Analects 7:36. The superior man, Junzi, finds joy in refined beauty, in music, literature, and ritual, because beauty brings peace to the soul. The small man pursues sensual pleasure, letting greed become the only song he hears. Confucius believed that art could transform people without moral preaching. A noble melody makes one pause, look inward, and desire to be better. A beautiful poem can wash away anger. A graceful painting can teach humility. The virtue of music consists in its being clear without being harsh, and full without being overwhelming. The Book of Rites, music and art, in their true essence, teach harmony between inner life and the outer world. They soften the rigid edges of morality, turning self-cultivation into joy rather than burden. Full, morality and beauty. The two wings of the soul Confucius never separated morality from beauty. He knew that morality without beauty grows stern and dry, while beauty without morality becomes hollow. They are like ritual, lie, and benevolence, ren. One gives form, the other gives life. Li and Yue, rites and music, are the two wings of civilization. Interpretation from the Analects. A society with Li but no Yue, music, is orderly but cold. With Yue but no Li, joyful but chaotic. Only when ritual and music unite can humanity dwell in harmony with heaven and earth. Thus, Confucius regarded music not merely as art, but as the highest form of moral education. Those unmoved by doctrines may still be touched by a gentle melody. Those astray from virtue may find their way home through the beauty of art. V. Conclusion. In Confucius's vision, art does not decorate life. It purifies it. Music, painting, and poetry, when nourished by virtue, become the language of the soul-making people, tender without weakness, emotional without indulgence. It is by music that the mind is made tranquil, and by rites that conduct is made orderly. The Analects, 8-8, music calms the heart, ritual orders the world. A society that sings in harmony and cherishes beauty in simplicity will never lose its humanity. And this, Confucius wished to bequeath to all generations. Morality and beauty are not two paths, but one, the path that leads humankind back to the harmony between heaven and the heart. Part 16th, Modern Applications, Confucianism in Today's World. After reflecting on art and music, cultivating the heart and refining humanity, where Confucius saw beauty as a bridge between humanity and morality, his thought steps into a different realm, the modern age. The world today no longer has Zhou dynasties, chariots, or the sound of stone chimes, yet the issues Confucius faced remain the same: greed and justice, chaos and order, ambition and humility. And perhaps, in our own age, where speed replaces depth and material surpasses spirit, Confucianism becomes more essential than ever. His philosophy does not belong solely to the past. It can serve as a compass for the modern world, from politics and business to education and personal life. I in business, the way of trust and fairness. If Confucius lived in the 21st century, he would not condemn enterprise. He would simply ask one question: what is the foundation of a state? Is it not trust? The Analects 12.7. For him, trust, shin, is the root of all human relations between ruler and people, between individuals, and today, between companies and society. An economy may grow through technology, but it can endure only through integrity and ethics. The superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions. The Analects 1429. Confucius advised leaders and business people alike to speak little, act much, letting deeds be their truest advertisement. In a world rife with competition and deceit, trust becomes the rarest currency. A business that keeps faith with its customers, is honest in its products, and fair to its workers will earn the respect of society like a junzi, gentleman, in the marketplace. Fairness to Confucius was not merely the sharing of profit, but the respect for human dignity. The superior man thinks of virtue. The small man thinks of comfort. The Analects 4:11. The gentleman in business does not seek profit alone, but strives to serve society through the values he creates. An ethical enterprise sees its customers not as tools, but as companions on the shared journey of humanity. No. 2. In politics, leading by virtue, not by fear. In Confucius's time, war and power defined every kingdom. Yet he dared to speak words that unsettled kings. If the ruler himself is upright, all will go well, even though he does not give orders. But if he himself is not upright, even though he gives orders, they will not be obeyed. The Analects, 13:6. This is the golden principle of modern leadership. Whether a nation, organization, or community, if its leader is virtuous, people follow. If deceitful, the system decays from within. Confucius did not design political systems. He defined the spirit of leadership. To lead is not to rule, it is to serve. He who rules by virtue is like the North Star. It stays in its place, while all the other stars turn towards it. The Analects, 2:1. Leadership by virtue is like the North Star. It does not move, yet all are drawn to it. A Confucian leader is humble, attentive, places the people's welfare above self, and treats power as duty, not privilege. In our age, where politics is often shaped by image and media, his words echo profoundly. Morality cannot be staged, it must be lived. To see what is right and not to do it is the want of courage. The Analects, 2:24. True leaders act rightly, even at the cost of votes, wealth, or power. This is the essence of rectification of names. Zhengming. Each person living true to their role so the state may find peace. Third, in family and personal life, self-cultivation, humility, and the art of slowness. Confucius taught filial piety and fraternal submission are they not the root of all benevolent actions? The Analects, 1:2. For him, family is the foundation of morality. If each person honors parents and lives in harmony with siblings, society needs few laws. In our modern world, driven by ambition and fatigue, that teaching becomes a remedy for the soul. Return to family, to shared meals, to simple greetings, to genuine care, for there begins and endures all virtue. The superior man is dignified but not proud. The small man is proud but not dignified. The Analects, 13:26. Humility, Confucius said, is an art of living. In an era of I know everything, I am right and I am famous, he reminds us that true wisdom lies in knowing one's limits. Humility does not make one small, it allows the soul to grow in stillness. And living slowly, as Confucius did all his life, is the choice of one who values each moment. He did not rush, nor speak hastily, nor decide impulsively, for he knew to go fast is not to go right. The cautious seldom err. The Analects, 4:23. In a world ruled by deadlines and measured by likes, his teaching calls us back to the natural rhythm of the heart. 4. In education, lifelong learning and the unity of knowledge and character. No one spoke of education more beautifully than Confucius. He taught all his life to all people and left this immortal line, "Is it not a pleasure to learn and to practice what is learned at due times?" The Analects, 1.1. Learning, for him, was not to acquire knowledge, but to live better. Education was the path of awakening human nature, not the ladder of ambition. He who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger. The Analects, 2:15. Knowledge and virtue are two wings of the same bird. Without one, humanity tilts and falls. A learned person without morality is dangerous. A moral person without understanding is easily deceived. Education breeds confidence. Confidence breeds hope. Hope breeds peace. Interpretation from Confucian thought. Education, in his view, teaches people to trust in the good. If schools teach skills, but not compassion, society will produce engineers, but not humane souls, clever rulers, but conscienceless leaders. Centuries before modern liberal education, Confucius proclaimed, "In teaching, there should be no class distinction." The Analects. 1539. Everyone deserves to learn, for knowledge is humanity's common road toward virtue. Even today, in an age of technology, his wisdom endures. Education must not only produce capable minds, but kind hearts. V. Confucianism. The foundation of a humane, harmonious, and sustainable society. From business to politics, from family to education, Confucianism aims at one ultimate goal: harmony between person and person, person and nature, and person and self. It is a philosophy of balanced unity without uniformity, strength without domination, progress without rootlessness. The gentleman seeks harmony, but not uniformity. The petty man seeks uniformity, but not harmony. The Analects 1323. Harmony, not homogeny. Confucianism teaches respect for difference, empathy over opposition, and therein lies the essence of a humane, enduring society. Today, amid crises of trust, division, and extremism, Confucius's philosophy offers a spiritual cure. It reminds us that true progress is not the expansion of cities, but the expansion of hearts, not the growth of technology, but the refinement of human conduct. 6. Conclusion. More than 2 millennia after his passing, Confucius still converses with our age. From bustling marketplaces to global assemblies, from classrooms to parliaments, from humble homes to grand halls, his words still resound. The superior man acts before he speaks, and afterwards speaks according to his action. The Analects. 2:13. Our world needs such people, those who act before they speak, who live rightly before they teach righteousness. Confucianism does not belong to the past. It awaits rebirth in the way we live, work, love, and learn each day. As he once said, "He who wishes to secure the good of others has already secured his own." The Analects, 6:30. When people live for one another, society becomes good by nature. That, perhaps, is the ultimate purpose of Confucianism, not to build glorious empires, but to create a world of kindness, balance, and enduring harmony. Part 17th. Conclusion. Sowing the seeds of virtue into the world, after reflecting on modern applications. Confucianism, in today's world, we can see that although the world changes without cease, the human heart still needs to be illumined by the same light, morality and compassion. And this is precisely what Confucius bequeathed to humanity, a perennial seed of virtue planted in each soul to sprout, grow, and spread peace across the world. To put the world in order, we must first put the nation in order. To put the nation in order, we must first put the family in order. To put the family in order, we must first cultivate our personal life. The Great Learning. This sentence is the lifelong declaration of Confucius. He believed that all order, from the individual to all under heaven, begins with self-cultivation. No peace can be imposed from without. It can arise only from within each person. World peace begins with a gentle and good heart. Confucius lived amid war, when feudal states fought without end, and people dwelt in fear. He did not seek peace by weapons. He sought it through enlightening the inner life. The man of virtue makes the difficulty to be overcome his first business, and success only a subsequent consideration. The Analects, 6:19. He understood that the hardest task is not ending war, but ending the disorder within the human heart. When people are ruled by ambition, fear, and selfishness, the outer world mirrors those storms. Conversely, if each heart holds calm and compassion, then even without many laws, society will naturally incline toward harmony. The virtue of the gentleman is like the wind. The virtue of the small man is like the grass. When the wind blows, the grass must bend. The Analects, 12:19. A virtuous person is a gentle breeze that softens those nearby, teaching them to listen and to love. When such breezes meet across individuals, families, and communities, a springtime of peace arrives. 2. Each small act of humanity is a seed that spreads peace. Confucius never spoke of grand monuments. He spoke of how one person might do the smallest thing well. He knew that precisely such small deeds compose the true strength of morality. He who wishes to secure the good of others has already secured his own. The Analects, 6:30. When we help another, we also help ourselves. When we plant the seed of compassion, we make our own inner soil more fertile. A kind word, a just act, a sympathetic smile, though small are seeds of peace. Virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. The Analects, 4:25. The doer of good is never alone, for goodness spreads like light, illuminating other hearts. If each person sows a seed of virtue each day, the world will become a field in bloom. No slogans are required, no revolutions demanded. If we live with humanity, peace will arise of itself. 3. A timeless Weiren, Li, Yi, Zhu, Shin Confucius did more than teach virtue. He built a way of life for human beings. Benevolence, Ren, ritual propriety, Lai, righteousness, Yai, wisdom, Zhi, and trustworthiness, Shin. These 5 seeds are 5 colors in the garden of the heart, together composing the full picture of morality and harmony. Is virtue a thing remote? I wish to be virtuous, and lo, virtue is at hand. The Analects, 7:29. Ren is compassion, the root of being human. Li is order giving shape to compassion. Yi is the right giving direction to action. Zhi is understanding keeping morality from blindness. Shin is sincerity, keeping the world from collapsing into suspicion. When these 5 virtues blend, the person becomes whole. When many whole persons meet, society becomes harmonious. And when society lives in harmony, the world finds peace. The gentleman seeks harmony, but not uniformity. The petty man seeks uniformity, but not harmony. The Analects, 13:23. Confucius did not dream of a world made uniform, but of a world that respects difference within a spirit of goodwill. This is precisely what humanity longs for today: diversity with morality, progress with a human heart. If, from self-cultivation to peace under heaven, the journey of the seed. All of Confucius's philosophy may be gathered into one current: self-cultivation, ordering the family, governing the state, bringing peace to all under heaven. This is not a path of power, but a radiation of virtue. When the root is firm, the branches flourish. The Analects, 1:2. Interpretation. The root is the self. If the root is strong, the branches are green. Self-cultivation is not only personal perfection, it is a social act, for each upright person is a tessera in the mosaic of public order. When we correct ourselves, we have already begun to correct the world. The superior man acts before he speaks, and afterwards speaks according to his action. The Analects 2:13. True change does not come from words, but from deeds. The world needs fewer admonitions and more living examples. Each right action, each kindly life, is a quiet seed of virtue planted in the earth. V. Conclusion. When virtue becomes humanity's common tongue. More than 2 millennia have passed, yet the words of Confucius still flow like an unfailing spring. He founded no religion and built no temple of power. He simply sowed the seeds of morality and let time do the rest. He who exercises government by means of his virtue may be compared to the North Star, which keeps its place and all the stars turn towards it. The Analects 2:1. Like the North Star, Confucius's thought remains bright but not blinding, still yet guiding. In an age of division and crises of trust, his philosophy reminds us that the way to save the world is not conquest, but transformation of the heart. Peace needs no weapons. It needs people to replant the seeds of virtue in their own hearts. For, as Confucius said, to see what is right and not to do it is the want of courage. The Analects 2:24. The greatest courage is not to defeat an enemy, but to dare to be kind in a cold world. And when people choose kindness, the world chooses peace. The seed of virtue that Confucius sowed is not planted in soil alone. It is planted in the human heart. If each generation, each person, waters that seed with ren, li, yi, ji, and shin, then no matter how time may change, there will remain a place on this earth for the light of compassion,